Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. I, Uchiha Itachi, become the 10th member of the Straw Hats. Chapter 1. No matter what you become in the future, I will always love you. These were the last words Itachi said to Sasuke after defeating Kabuto Yakushi and releasing the reincarnation of the earth. Itachi, who was about to return his soul to the Pure Land, looked at Sasuke with happiness in his eyes. Sasuke, what a stupid auto. In this case, Uchiha's future will be continued by you. As his soul ascended to heaven, Itachi's consciousness became weaker and weaker, and he seemed to see the heaven above the clouds. I have no more regrets. Itachi smiled happily. After an unknown amount of time, Itachi suddenly opened his eyes. The first thing that catches the eye is a patch of hazy sunlight and many huge, intertwined tree roots. In the scene in front of me, there are countless colors and all kinds of fish swimming freely. Through the huge tree roots stretching upward and the wandering fish and weasels, one can realize that this place does not seem to be a pure land. Looking at this scene, it seems like being at the bottom of the sea. As early as the first battle against Sasuke, Itachi ran out of chakra and died of illness. Itachi's soul had visited the Pure Land. He remembered that the Pure Land world was not like the scene in front of him. Then where is this? Itachi couldn't help but ask. Itachi tried to sit up, and suddenly he felt his heart beating loudly. Itachi clenched his fists and touched the tear trough on his cheek. He stood up in shock. He is not a soul, nor is he reincarnated from the dirt, this is his body. Itachi walked around and found that he seemed to be on a ship. He saw that the ship was wrapped in a bubble-like substance and was sinking into the deep sea. Through the vague reflection reflected in the bubbles, Itachi was more sure that he was not in a soul state, but had his own real body. This is how the same thing. At this moment, Itachi suddenly heard sounds coming from the front of the cabin. On the deck of the Wanli Sunshine, Sanji slowly opened his eyes after hearing what Frankie and Zoro said. Benefactor, Sanji, you're awake, Chopper said excitedly. Come and eat a bento. A bento from Hinajima Island. Luffy smiled and stretched out his hand towards him. Girl Island, is that guy Shang really the benefactor? Do you know where I have been for the past 2 years? What on earth did you practice in a heaven filled with women? Luffy. Sanji couldn't help but roar as he recalled the horrific experience he had on the transvestite island in the 2 years since he was beaten away by a bear. Ah, okay, Sanji-san, I don't know how you suffered, but now let's enjoy our new journey. Brook took out his guitar and tried to comfort Sanji. Let's sing a song together. Let's celebrate our reunion after 2 years of separation and start a new journey. Stop encouraging me, it will only make me sadder. There was no color on Sanji's face. Itachi frowned slightly as he listened to these people's voices. It appears to be the crew of this ship. He doesn't quite understand now. He obviously should return to the Pure Land as his soul, but why would he bring his body to a place like this? Itachi immediately wanted to confirm whether his body had been subjected to a resurrection spell such as Samsara again, and then to see if there was Kabuto Yakushi or someone with the Samsara eye nearby. Or is it me who was resurrected by Sasuke? The more Itachi thought about it, the less he understood. At this moment, Usopp held the telescope and said worriedly as he walked, Hey, you actually still want to watch whales? Nami just said that there is a 70% chance that the boat going to Fishman Island will sink, 70%. I can't take my time like this anymore. Quote, Usopp said as he was about to take out his telescope and look around. He walked up the stairs to the sub-mast of the Wanli Sunshine. Just when he opened the telescope, he suddenly saw a person standing on the deck. Wow, seeing Usopp yelling, Itachi, who was still in a state of confusion, instantly became alert. Usopp yelled and rolled down the stairs. Luffy, Zoro and others rushed over quickly. Usopp, what's going on? The ship, there are enemies on the ship. Usopp stammered. The enemy, where is it? Where is it? Chopper shouted along with Usopp. Zoro had already seen Itachi, and he immediately pushed the knife away from his waist. Itachi habitually wanted to touch the ninja tool on his waist, but he did not have a ninja tool bag on him. Luffy looked at Itachi carefully, and saw that Itachi was wearing a grid-like chainmail upper body, black pants with knee pads on the lower body, and open-toe short boots on his feet. His deep eyes were paired with a scratched forehead protector. Her long hair is tied back. Luffy jumped up excitedly. What this enemy wears is so cool. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the Straw Hats looked at Luffy. Luffy, it's been 2 years and your focus is still so different. Yeah, we have to figure out where this person came from. Frankie clenched his iron fist and looked at Itachi nervously. From the time he arrived at the Sabayati Islands to the time he broke away from the marine pursuit and dived into the deep sea, he had been staying with the Wanli Sunshine. He had also checked before setting off, and there was absolutely no enemy hidden on the ship. Robin looked at Itachi cautiously and said, "Could it be a ruthless warrior sent by Marine to take our lives?" "What you said is so scary, Robin." Chopper jumped up along with Luffy. "Hey, man with the tear trough, where did you come from?" Sanji pointed at Itachi and asked. "Tear troughs, speaking of which, do I have tear troughs?" "Oh, by the way, I am a skeleton, so I won't have tear troughs." Brook touched his empty eyes and sighed. "Don't mess with Brook." Nami punched him away. Itachi looked up and down at the people in front of him, wondering how these people were hitting here and there with hammers and sticks. They don't look like ninjas from any country, except for the green-haired man in the middle, who is dressed a bit like a samurai. "Tell me quickly, Tear Trough Man, how did you come to our ship, hee hee hee?" Luffy asked with a smile as he rested his head on his hands. He was not nervous at all. Itachi then discovered that the language they spoke was the same as his own. "If I say, I don't know why I'm here," Itachi said, his voice still as dull as before. "Then cut off your hands and feet before asking any more questions." Zoro charged with his sword and was in front of Itachi in an instant. "Hey Zoro, don't be so impulsive," Nami tried to dissuade him. Zoro's knife had fallen on Itachi. I saw Zoro easily cut Itachi in half. "Ah, this!" everyone in the Straw Hats exclaimed. But at this moment, the figure of Itachi, who was split in half, suddenly disappeared and turned into a ball of black crows. The crows flew away in all directions, making strange calls in the deep sea. "Devil fruit, what kind of ability is this?" Zoro immediately wrapped his haki around the blade. When he was in Hawkeye's castle, Hawkeye taught him how to deal with devil fruit users. He could use his haki to attach weapons to attack to break his devil fruit abilities. But just when Zoro was about to release his domineering power, he suddenly felt his eyes spinning. After his eyes settled for a moment, he was in a desolate world full of blood. I'm obviously not on the Wanli Sunshine, so why would I appear in a place like this? Moreover, the body cannot move. Hey Zoro, what's wrong with you?" Luffy rushed forward quickly and found that Zoro was still swinging the sword, but his body could not move. "Moreover, I don't know where the Tear Trough Man went." At this moment, Itachi's figure was slowly formed by crows, and he stood on the auxiliary mast of the Wanli Sunshine. "Look, the Tear Trough Man is there." Usopp pointed out Itachi first. Everyone immediately turned their attention to Itachi. "Hey Tear Trough Man, what did you do to Zoro?" Luffy shouted. "Don't worry, he's fine." Itachi's eyes moved slightly, releasing the genjutsu, and Zoro collapsed to the ground. Chopper hurried forward to check on Zoro. "First of all, I need to make it clear that I am not here to be your enemy." Itachi looked at Luffy. "Secondly, I don't know why I'm here. Besides, there is nothing wrong with that samurai. He just suffered a little genjutsu from me, and the influence has been eliminated by me." Warrior, genjutsu. Chopper and Usopp were shocked. Zoro had recovered. He raised his knife and looked at Itachi with a stern expression. "I really don't know what happened just now. I was in that state just for a moment," Zoro said. He paid great attention to ensure that he would not be affected by Itachi again. "If you are not our enemy, then where did you come from and why are you on our ship?" Luffy put his hands behind his head again, his face full of confusion. Itachi thought for a moment, and his memory still stayed at the time when he was reincarnated in the Dirty Land. He said, "I am from Shao." Itachi didn't explicitly say that he was from Konoha. "Dawn." Before everyone in the Straw Hats could get confused, Itachi asked, "Where is this? Who are you?" After hearing this, Luffy said, "Oh wow, Monkey D. Luffy. I am a man who wants to be one piece. This ship is our ship, they are my companions, Zoro, nah." Before he could finish speaking, Nami became furious and punched Luffy with a big bump on his head. Don't tell yourself your family name casually. She pointed at Itachi again. You are on our ship now. If you want to ask questions, we should ask you first, right? Suga, Nami is right. Usopp and Nami stood in a row. Itachi looked at Nami and asked, so, you are the captain of this ship? No, I am the captain. Luffy, who was carrying a large bag on his head, raised his hand. Nami hit Luffy on the head with a backhand and hit him again. Don't talk at this time. Nami turned to Itachi again. Are you a pirate? Or a marine? Or a revolutionary army? Itachi became even more confused when he heard this. The 3 words this woman said were not what he usually heard. Neither. Itachi shook his head. I still want to ask, where is this place? Ah, this is the Sabayati Islands. We are probably at the bottom of the sea now. I don't know how many meters deep we are. Ah, by the way, we are going to Fishman Island, do you want to come with us? When Luffy finished saying these words, all he could see in his eyes was Nami, whose anger was higher than the sails of the ship. After a violent storm, Luffy lay completely on the ground, smoking all over his body. What a mess. Itachi couldn't help but sigh. At this moment, Itachi suddenly saw out of the corner of his eye a ship approaching them quickly. Itachi found that his eyesight seemed to have returned to what it was before he started using Mangekyo Sharingan. He could see clearly even in the deep sea. A ship is approaching. Itachi reminded everyone in the straw hats. Before they could react, the rapidly approaching ship accelerated at full speed and slammed into the Wanli Sunshine. Boom! The hull of the ship was shaken, and everyone in the straw hats staggered. Itachi stood firmly on the auxiliary mast, staring at the ship that hit him. What's the situation? Luffy quickly jumped up and came to the deck. Looking at this posture, it might be an enemy attack. Itachi said. It's really bad. There are obviously strangers on the boat, and yet there are enemy attacks at this time. Zoro drew out 3rd generation Kitetsu and came to the deck with everyone in the straw hats. Turn the rudder quickly. Frankie was worried that the bubble coating would be damaged and shouted. Sanji quickly jumped in front of the rudder and used all his strength to turn the rudder away, allowing the Wanli Sunshine to move quickly. However, the people on the opposite boat yelled, "Come on, Manatee!" The Manatee in front of the opposite ship heard this and burst out with strength, violently driving the ship's hull and crashing into the Sunshine again. What it is? Itachi pointed in front of the bow of the Sunshine and saw a monster with the body of a fish and the head of a bull tied to the front of the ship on the opposite side. The monster was pulling the ship hard against the Sunshine. Could it be a psychic beast? Itachi thought to himself. Nami looked in the direction Itachi was pointing and saw that what was tied to the front of the other boat was a manatee. Wait, manatee. Nami suddenly recalled the Arlong pirates entrenched in Kokoja village. At this moment, Chopper shouted, "Oops! The bubble is about to burst." I saw the bubbles of the 2 ships squeezing each other. Just when everyone in the straw hats was worried, the 2 bubbles not only did not burst, but actually merged together. Good job, Manatee. On the opposite boat, the new generation supernova, Caribou the wet hair, who had a bounty of 210 million belly, was laughing excitedly. Are they going to rush in? Brook panicked. What are you doing? Why are you attacking us? Luffy frowned. Zoro looked at the other side, then at Itachi, gritted his teeth and said, the current situation is really troublesome. Hey Luffy, and the curly eyebrow cook, get ready for a fight. Zoro took a stance. Who are you talking about with curly eyebrows? You green algae head. Sanji glared at Zoro. On the opposite boat, Caribou's younger brother Crib was holding a big shovel and was shouting, "Brother, the bubble is connected." That's great, kids, come on. Caribou raised his hands, shouted loudly, and jumped onto the deck of the Sunshine first. It's confirmed, it's an enemy attack. Itachi glanced at Caribou, who jumped off the jib mast. Hey, that's Samurai, and the man in the straw hat. Itachi called out to Zoro and Luffy. The first thing to make clear is that I am not here to be your enemy. The problem now is that there is a crisis on this ship, and I am also on this ship, so let us deal with the enemy attack first, and then figure out the origins of me and you. Luffy heard this and laughed without thinking, okay, tear trough man. Zoro still looked at Itachi warily and said nothing. While he was on guard against Caribou, he was also on guard against Itachi. Luffy turned to look at Caribou again, This guy seems to be the person I saw in the Sabayati Islands. When Caribou saw the Straw Hats gathered together, he shouted excitedly, I didn't expect to rush in so smoothly. Boys, take off the Straw Hat gang's heads and put them on me. Just as he was shouting excitedly, Moo Moo, the manatee pulling the boat at the bow of Caribou, suddenly recognized Nami as the Nami of the Dragon Pirates. Moo Moo looked at the others in fear. After some confirmation, Moo Moo was so frightened that he was shaking all over and bursting into tears. Moo Moo turned around and ran away. Before Caribou's younger brother could rush into the sunshine, he had already escaped with Caribou's reindeer. Caribou was still shouting excitedly, but he found that the little brother behind him hadn't come over yet. Young men, shoot hard and kill all the Straw Hats. While shouting, Caribou turned around, and to his surprise, the reindeer horn behind him had disappeared. Moo and howling, he has already rushed away from the Wanli sunshine with the reindeer. Caribou's eyes suddenly widened. Moreover, he suddenly saw a man outside the Straw Hats standing on the deck. It's so weird. Itachi thought it was just the people on the ship who were strange, but he didn't expect that even the enemy ship was so strange. What kind of country is this? Where have the ninjas gone? Before Caribou could think about who Itachi was on the deck, when he looked into Itachi's eyes, he suddenly discovered that Itachi's pupils turned into a rotating blood-red pattern. Genjutsu, Wei Hang. Caribou was shocked, and in an instant he found that he was tied to a gray cross. 2 huge iron nails had pierced his body, and blood was slowly flowing out from the wounds. Am I not a swamp? How could this attack hurt me? No, where am I? The pain and blood flowing out were so real that Caribou couldn't understand them at all. In reality, it only took a moment before Caribou fell to the ground. This made everyone in the Straw Hats even more puzzled. What does this person want to do? Why did you faint all of a sudden? What on earth is he here to do? Chopper, who was already in a panic, was even more confused now. Zoro immediately turned his attention to Itachi. This is probably due to that person's ability. Zoro subconsciously tightened his grip on third-generation Kidetsu. Just now he saw Caribou and Itachi looking at each other, and Caribou fell to the ground. This situation is exactly the same as when I attacked Itachi just now. The Tear Trough man's ability. Luffy looked at Itachi in surprise. He stretched out his rubber arms, grabbed the railing and jumped in front of Itachi, surprising Itachi. What happened to your arm? As for the arms, I am the rubber man with the rubber fruit. Luffy said as he showed Itachi how to blow up a balloon. He took a big breath and his stomach swelled up like a balloon. Rubber. Itachi looked at Luffy and then at Skeleton Brook. The strangeness of the ship was beyond his comprehension. Tear Trough man, what happened to you just now? Why did you look at him? This man fainted just like Zoro did just now. Luffy was still floating in the sky, spinning and talking to Itachi. Ah Nuobaga, Zoro shouted at Luffy. Don't look into his eyes, be careful of getting caught. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the Straw Hats was reminded. Yes, you haven't explained your origin yet. Nami stood up. Although she looked at Itachi, she didn't dare to look into his eyes. Itachi let out a breath, jumped onto the deck, and looked at everyone. Please rest assured, as long as I don't initiate the genjutsu, no one will fall victim to it. Seeing Itachi approaching, everyone looked very nervous, but Itachi was very calm. I'm Uchiha Itachi. I was originally a ninja from Konoha village in the Land of Fire, and later became an S-class rebel ninja. Now I am a member of the Akatsuki organization. If he hadn't seen this group of people so confused, Itachi would never have introduced himself like this. Uchiha Itachi. Luffy scratched his head and said, what a difficult name to pronounce. Akatsuki organization. Robin held her chin in thought. She had never heard of this organization. Wait a minute, Nami exclaimed in shock. You seem to have said you were a ninja just now. Yes, ninja. Seeing everyone's reaction to the word ninja, Itachi nodded. Luffy, Chopper and Usopp suddenly became very interested in the word ninja, and all 3 of them's eyes shone. Do you know how to ninjutsu? Escape technique, shuriken, and clone technique. I can barely do it. Itachi nodded slightly. Brook murmured. Ninjas, if they are the origin of ninjas, they should be the country of Wano. He confirmed again. You just said your country is the country of fire, are you sure it's not the country of Wan? Okay, Fire Nation. Itachi looked at the talking skeleton. That's very strange. Brook had been sailing for decades, and he had never heard of a place called the Land of Fire. Robin also searched her memory. In the past 2 years, she had been staying with the Revolutionary Army and traveled to many countries. She had also never heard of a place called the Land of Fire. Nami asked, which part of the Four Seas is Wano country located in? Four Seas. Itachi was puzzled. I don't understand what you mean. The country of fire is one of the 5 major countries. It is connected to the other 4 major countries by land. There is no large ocean around it. He was very surprised. The fire country was a big country, how could anyone not know about it? There are 7 people in the straw hats. What are these people talking about? Itachi and the straw hats were once again confused. At this moment, it suddenly started to get cold on the Wanli sunshine. What's going on? I feel like the temperature around me has dropped. Sanji exhaled a puff of smoke and looked around. The surroundings are getting darker and darker, and the sunlight is gradually disappearing. Nami looked around and said, it may get cold next, so please put on your coats. Will your body get cold? But, before Brook finished speaking, Chopper answered, Brook doesn't have a body that can get cold. He's a skeleton, so he won't get cold, right? Upon hearing that he had been robbed of his words again, Brook lay on the ground depressed. Chow Basan, why are you here again, Brook? Usopp glared at Brook. Coat. Luffy exhaled the breath in his stomach and came to Itachi again. Tear trough man, did you bring your coat? No, Itachi couldn't figure out why he appeared here with a physical body, let alone wearing a coat. Hey, wait a minute. Luffy ran to the cabin and took a coat and handed it to Itachi. Nami said, it might get cold next, so put it on. Don't just trust outsiders. Zoro hit Luffy on the head with the handle of his knife. Itachi took the coat with some hesitation, but finally said thank you and put it on. He found that Luffy really didn't seem like a person with many thoughts. Itachi continued, anyway, I can explain my origins to you in detail later, but I still want to know first, where are you going? Of course it's Fishman Island. Fishman Island 10,000 meters under the sea. Under the sea, Fishman Island. Although Itachi felt that Luffy was talking nonsense, he was indeed in the deep sea with this ship. Okay, I'll beg you all to give me a ride first. Itachi bowed to everyone. Don't say such polite words, just come together if you want to go. Luffy laughed. Zoro, Nami and Usopp stood in a row. I told you not to trust outsiders so easily. What's the matter? Didn't the tear trough man subdue that person just now? No matter what others say, Luffy is always excited. Speaking of which, aren't we going to the deep sea? Why are we going to a cold place? Luffy asked Nami. Frankie answered. The deeper the water is, the colder it will naturally be below. Frankie is right. Nami nodded and explained to everyone. There is not only a temperature difference between the seabed and the sea, but also a difference in currents. At this time, Brook, who was lying on the ground, raised his head and said, at the bottom of the sea, there are deep currents invisible to the naked eye. They are completely different from the surface currents. Are there any currents under the current? Brook, you know so much. Usopp smiled. Yo-ho-ho-ho. Brook laughed, I've lived a lot longer than you. That skeleton. Itachi looked at Brook in confusion. Just now he didn't understand why the bones could talk. Ah, 7 thorns. Brook thought about the pronunciation of Itachi's name. Before he could finish speaking, Luffy spoke up. Brook is a user with the underworld fruit ability. His ability is to resurrect from the dead, so he turned into a skeleton. Brook lay on the ground depressed again. Luffy-san, why do you always steal my words? Stop being so depressed. Usopp slapped Brook's head back and forth. Fruit. Itachi's doubts did not diminish at all. He remembered that the man named Luffy also mentioned that he was a rubber fruit user. In short, the currents in the sea are complex, some rise and some dive. What we are going to ride now is the descending current that descends from the surface to the deep layer. Nami said. Now we should be at a depth of 4,000 meters. After riding on the up and down currents, we can follow the currents to Fishman Island. Luffy, Zoro and Chopper all tilted their heads, expressing that they didn't understand. Itachi also sighed. The deep sea is 4,000 meters deep. It's really magical. He has been on many missions to fight on the sea, and several times he used Kisami's ability to sneak into the seabed to fight, but he has never been to such a deep seabed. While several people were talking, they had already lowered their guard against Itachi. Robin, who was sitting on the bow reading a book, suddenly felt the change in the current outside the bubble. She stood up and shouted, "Everyone, we are here." Hearing this, Luffy and Chopper jumped up and ran towards the bow of the ship. Is there a top-down current ahead? Zoro also temporarily put down his vigilance against Itachi and stood on the bow. In front of the Wanli Sunshine, a huge waterfall-like current several kilometers wide appeared in front of everyone. The Wanli Sunshine was slowly falling under the influence of this waterfall-like current. This is so spectacular. Luffy's face was pressed against bubbles to see the waterfall. Frankie controlled the rudder and took off his sunglasses. Nature is truly magical. It's so deep down there. Usopp's eyes almost popped out of his head when he looked down there. If we fell at the speed of a waterfall, wouldn't we be shattered to pieces? Frankie, is it really okay for us to ride on this current? Nami asked. You can absolutely rest assured, Frankie said confidently, the sunny is made from the precious tree atom, there is absolutely no problem. Yoshi, move forward. Luffy cheered. At this moment, Caribou, who had been hit by Itachi's genjutsu as soon as he got on the boat, was lying on the ground unable to move and struggled to wake up. He suffered so much from genjutsu on the Grey Cross that it seemed like a century had passed, but in reality it was only a short quarter of an hour. Itachi noticed that his genjutsu had dissipated, and he reminded the Straw Hats, the person who launched the enemy attack just now has woken up. Everyone turned around, and Caribou stood up tremblingly. Just now, what happened? Caribou touched his body in panic and found that there were no huge iron nails and no blood flowing out. Even without these, he felt that his body was extremely weak. Itachi was also slightly surprised. If he were an ordinary person, he would have to lie in bed for at least several months to recover after being hit by his shackles technique. This man's physical fitness is quite strong. Before Caribou could fully recover, Frankie had already tied him up tightly. I feel relieved now, he said as he kicked Caribou's waist and tied the rope. Ah, this. Caribou trembled with fright when he saw the Straw Hats, and when he saw Itachi, his whole body became weak. Before being locked by the cross, he just glanced at Itachi. Could it be this man's ability? Caribou thought fearfully. But he had never heard of such a person on the Straw Hat cruise ship. Just when Caribou was trembling with fear, he suddenly saw a pair of huge eyes in front of the Wanli Sunshine in the sea currents and waterfalls. This, could it be? Caribou struggled to the side of the boat and looked at the waterfall. I've never heard of a guy like that living here. Hey, that fool, who made you move? Sanji raised his legs when he saw the situation. But Caribou suddenly shouted, turn around. Straw Hats, turn around quickly. What are you talking about? I didn't even expect you to be alive. Zoro crossed his arms and walked forward. It's because I don't want to die, so I asked you to turn around quickly, hurry up. There is a monster, a huge monster. Caribou was terrified. Monster. Chopper was so frightened that he panicked. Stop talking nonsense, how can there be any monsters? Usopp was looking at the waterfall, and Luffy was also very puzzled. While Caribou was shouting in panic, Itachi also noticed something unusual. He stood on the bow of the boat and suddenly found a huge shadow in the waterfall. Itachi rolled his eyes, Sharingan appeared, and his vision became clearer. They are all legends. They are all made up by people. Usopp spread his hands, looking indifferent. But at this moment, everyone in the Straw Hats saw a huge tentacle slowly sliding past the bubble. Just as the tentacle slid past, a drowned corpse emerged from the suction cup. There really is a monster. Chopper and Brook huddled together, almost crying with fear. Don't always scare people, I'm no longer a cowardly trio. Usopp pointed to his nose with his thumb. But he suddenly felt a big shadow sliding behind him. Behind you. Nami raised his hand tremblingly. Usopp slowly turned his head and found a huge sucking tentacle right in front of the bubble. There is a monster. Usopp jumped 3 feet away. It's a giant octopus. Itachi pointed to the center of the waterfall. He had already seen the monster in full view. This octopus is larger than the 8-tailed Gyuki that resides in Killer Bee's body, and it looks like a legendary sea monster. Octopus, Kraken, the sea monster. Usopp was so frightened that he huddled together with Chopper. Luffy, Zoro and others stood up one after another, and saw that as the wanly sunshine got closer to the waterfall, the face of the sea monster became clearer and clearer. Really a giant octopus. This is the legendary sea monster Kraken. Usopp screamed repeatedly. It has crushed several ships. Frankie shouted, pointing at Kraken's tentacles. I saw several broken ships in the tentacles of this big guy. Please, I don't want to die yet, turn around quickly, Straw Hats. Caribou staggered to the bow of the ship. At this moment, the crew of Caribou's Caribou finally convinced Manatee Mu to turn around and fight back to save Caribou. On the reindeer, Caribou's younger brother Crib was standing on the bow of the ship shouting, "Little boys, we must rescue our eldest brother. Run it for me." The kids all responded, and the manatee pulled the boat toward the wanly sunshine. But just when they were about to arrive in front of the sunshine, Kraken stretched out a tentacle, grabbed the reindeer and squeezed it gently, crushing the reindeer to pieces. You guys. Crib watched as his brother Crib and crew floated upward. Your crew is like jellyfish. Zoro sighed. Shut up, Roronoa. Caribou yelled. While he was yelling, Chopper was also crying, Kraken is coming. Zoro was about to draw his sword immediately, and Luffy was about to use third gear at the same time, but Usopp stopped him. Stop. If you fight like this, you will burst the bubble. The opponent is too big to fight. While crying, Kraken was already rushing towards the wanly sunshine. Frankie jumped on the rudder and was about to start the spiral lion, causing the lion's head to spin and retreat. Before he could turn the button, Weasel had already rushed out of the bubble. Tear Trough Man. What is he going to do? Luffy was shocked as he was pushed down by Usopp. He must have devil fruit powers, how dare he enter the sea water? Zoro was also shocked. He clearly remembered that when he slashed Itachi with his sword, Itachi transformed into a crow. Sure enough, as long as it is not squeezed by a large and strong force, the bubble will not burst. Itachi had already come to this conclusion by observing how the bubbles of the two ships merged into one when Caribou's reindeer collided with the 1,000 miles of sunshine, and how the bubbles exploded when Kraken crushed the reindeer. He stood in the sea, letting chakra condense on the soles of his feet to maintain stability, and quickly formed seals in his hands. Water-style water dragon bullet. Weasel sprayed out a water dragon, and with the blessing of the surrounding seawater, a huge water dragon rushed towards Kraken, and rushed Kraken into the wall of the waterfall in one fell swoop. This scene immediately stunned everyone in the Straw Hats. That Uchiha Itachi, what is that released? Luffy stared at the afterimage of the water dragon bullet and said in a daze. It looks like a water dragon. He clearly transformed into a crow just now, how can he control the seawater now? Hey Luffy, aren't you devil fruit users most afraid of seawater? What's going on? Zoro was shocked. I don't know either. It was a waste of time to ask Luffy this question. I have never heard of a devil fruit that can control seawater. Robin analyzed, and suddenly her expression changed. Is it possible that this Uchiha Itachi really knows ninjutsu? Ninjutsu can't be on this scale. Sanji couldn't believe it. Caribou collapsed to the ground when he saw it. Hey, Straw Hats, where did you find such a crew? He is not our crew, shut up. Zoro punched Caribou. Seeing Kraken being swept away by the water cannon, Itachi quickly returned to the sunshine. He said, the obstruction of the sea current is very big. The water cannon bomb will not cause much damage to this big guy. We still have to leave as soon as possible. Water dragon bullet. Chopper looked at Itachi with gleaming eyes. Uchiha Itachi, your move names are so cool. Yes, Tear Trough Man, is this the name you gave me? It's so cool. Luffy also rushed to Itachi's side excitedly. Frankie was still holding his palm, but thanks to Itachi's delay, he could now fire the wind cannon once. Everyone, hold on, we're going to retreat. The horse fell. Hearing the retreat, Luffy quickly jumped to the bow of the ship. What's wrong, Luffy? Zoro looked at Luffy. Do you have any ideas? Luffy stared at the furious Kraken and said with a smile, I want to conquer it. Conquer it? Usopp rolled his eyes. Don't be ridiculous, Luffy, how can you conquer such a big thing? The first step is to crush it and subdue it. Luffy moved his arms, and Itachi was surprised when he heard this. Forget it if you subdue it, the captain named Luffy. Itachi looked at Luffy. If it really hinders the ship's forward direction, I can kill it. As soon as these words came out, everyone broke into a cold sweat. Itachi, are you serious? Usopp couldn't believe what Itachi said just now. Itachi-san, how scary. Brook looked at Itachi's very calm face and suddenly felt a very threatening aura. I'm not kidding. Itachi looked at Kraken, who was about to rush towards the Wanli Sunshine, and the Sharingan was already turning in his eyes, just waiting for him to take the Sharingan one step further and let the Mangekyo Sharingan appear. He could feel that as he regained his 18-year-old body, his Mangekyo Sharingan returned to its peak state. Of course, we still need to hide for a while. My method will make this sea monster struggle painfully. Luffy smiled slightly after hearing this. Don't worry, Tear Trough Man, I'll do it. Zoro and Sanji heard this and walked forward and stood behind Luffy. Hey Luffy, how do you want to beat this sea monster? Sanji asked. There's no need to say that. Luffy raised his arm and started blowing into it. Etc. Caribou said in panic. If you want to fight it, I have a way. After a while, following Caribou's instructions, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji easily put on the diving suits made of bubbles. Hey, everyone, this guy is an enemy. Are his words really credible? Usopp asked worriedly. He originally planned to encourage everyone to run away quickly, so that Luffy would have to fight the big sea monster again. Caribou walked up to him and whispered, I wanted to run away from the beginning. But do you think Straw Hat would listen to the idea of running away? Which method do you think is better than letting them fool around on the boat? Well, Usopp turned around and turned into a cheerleader. Luffy, you must defeat this big sea monster. Hey, wait a minute, Luffy, fasten the safety rope, or you'll be rushed out. Nami held the end of the rope, but Luffy and the other three had already rushed out of the Sunshine's bubble. Sanji, Zoro, help me delay. Luffy burst out of the bubble and began to use third gear to blow air into his arms. Sanji heard Nami's worry before he came out of the bubble, and blood spurted out from his nose. Miss Nami is worried about me, ha 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 ha. I don't need to delay you, I can cut it directly. Zoro was about to draw his sword. No, I still have to raise it. Luffy shouted. Itachi looked at the three people and couldn't help but worry, can they really do it? Nami was a little embarrassed, anyway, we generally believe them. Itachi sighed lightly, his expression seemed to say, okay. He had already thought about how to get these three people if something went wrong. Sanji was seen rushing to the front, and Kraken raised his tentacles to attack him. Sanji was the first to activate the demon wind kick, and the flames on his legs were even more intense than they were 2 years ago. Do you all know how I have spent these 2 years? Every day I am chased by those terrifying monsters, running every day. Compared to those ladyboys, this sea monster is cute. Just let me vent this anger. Sanji kicked the Kraken's tentacles with a flying kick, turning the tentacles into barbecued squid tentacles. Fire style appears from the feet. Itachi was a little strange, it seemed to be somewhat different from ninjaitsu. But now he can understand a little better. These people are not ninjas, and the strange moves they use are considered normal. It's not bad. This guy is far worse than those orangutans. I have been fighting non-stop these past 2 years. The secret of 3 sword styles, the crossroads of 6 paths. Zoro swung 3 knives and easily cut one of Kraken's legs into several sections. Sanji and Zoro have become so strong. Chopper exclaimed. Kraken, who was injured one after another, ran away in pain, and several squid tentacles bigger than the Wanli Sunshine swept towards the Wanli Sunshine. When Chopper saw this, he quickly used fur to strengthen it. Frankie raised his hand and fired the rocket launcher. Itachi reacted faster and he had already rushed out of the bubble. As Mangekyo Sharingan turned, Itachi's arm quickly transformed into Susanoo's giant hand. 3 tentacles swept in front of the giant hand, and Itachi waved lightly, directly lifting Kraken, tentacles and body into the air. Then, what kind of ability is it? Nami and others on the boat were even more shocked. One more. Before they could react, Itachi quickly rushed downwards, but it was too late. A tentacle had already swept over the sunshine, sweeping it away. Colorful colors, huge tree. Robin let his giant hand grow under the sunshine and supported the sea cliff to block the attack. Everyone has become stronger. Luffy looked at it and laughed. There is also Tear Trough Man. Although I don't know how he ended up on our ship, he is really strong. Luffy suddenly had an impulse in his heart. He wanted to invite Itachi on board. He immediately raised his arms high and stretched his stretched arms out of the bubble. Yeah, third gear, armed color coverage. The outstretched arm expanded rapidly and instantly turned into a giant fist covered in black-armed domineering energy. Itachi had returned to the ship, and Luffy's scene immediately reminded him of the Akamiki family's doubling technique. Luffy, have you grown to this level of strength? Usopp was overjoyed. And Zoro and Sanji, I couldn't even see their moves just now. Ah, and Itachi-san, the huge arm just now was really surprising. Brook said. Have a look at it, the giant pistol. Luffy slammed down his giant fist, crushing Kraken's head in one fell swoop. This is still in the sea, how powerful that guy has become. Nami exclaimed in surprise. Is there any difference between taking action in the sea and not in the sea? Itachi wondered. Itachi, you don't know that seawater can restrain devil fruits, right? Usopp couldn't believe it. At this moment, Chopper shouted, look, what is that? At the same time that Kraken was beaten, a shark wearing clothes escaped from one of Kraken's tentacles. The shark swam in front of Luffy and nodded at Luffy. What a big shark, Zoro said. Luffy was panting. He was very weak from stretching out his arms in the seawater just now. Why are you still wearing clothes? It looks like it is thanking us. It looks very educated. Itachi looked at the shark and wondered, is this a psychic beast? What psychic beast? He asked Nami and others, but they couldn't understand. At this moment, due to the greater kinetic energy of the current going downwards, and the sudden fall of Kraken, Luffy and the others outside suddenly increased their falling speed. Upon seeing this, Zoro immediately shouted to Luffy and Sanji, the situation is not good, Luffy, we have to get back to the ship quickly. Yoshi, then retreat quickly. Luffy just saw the manatees pulling the boat, and wanted to subdue Kraken to pull the boat for them, but now it seems that it will be difficult. The three of them were about to swim towards the sunshine, but found that they could no longer move from the current. As the vortex generated by Kraken's fall grew larger and larger, Luffy and the three of them were sucked into the descending current. No, the three of them were swallowed up by the falling current. Robin looked worriedly at the bottomless bottom. Frankie immediately ran towards the rudder, and Usopp shouted, let's chase him quickly, if we want to fall, we will fall together. By the time Frankie took control of the rudder, Itachi, who was standing on the edge of the ship, had already burst out of the bubble. How dare that guy break out of the bubble? Caribou's eyes almost popped out of his head while he was jolting around. I was diving into the sea just now. If you are strong, you can still withstand the pressure of the sea water. We are about to reach the deep sea. If there are no bubbles that can react with the sea water, they will be crushed directly. Caribou broke into a cold sweat. What kind of lunatics are the Straw Hat Pirates? Uchiha Itachi, come back quickly, there will be danger. Robin was also spinning in the air. She was closest to Itachi and shouted worriedly to Itachi. But through the bubbles, Itachi couldn't hear it at all. Hey, brother Tear Valley, don't seek death. Frankie raised his arm and fired a flash bomb. Nami forced himself to stand in front of the bubble. Uchiha Itachi, we can go find Luffy and the others on the sunshine, don't take any chances. Itachi couldn't hear the shouts of the crowd at all. There was only the roar of the sea in his ears. The breath he was holding in his chest was about to be squeezed out due to the huge pressure. Itachi was pressed until his veins were exposed. He rolled his eyes and Mangekyo Sharingan appeared immediately. Shusa can do it. As the Mangekyo Sharingan turned, Susanoo's chest bones enveloped Itachi. What is that? It looks like a skeleton. Usopp grabbed the sail while floating in the air, pointed in the direction of Itachi and shouted. Itachi was seen surrounded by a skeleton that glowed red. Skeleton. The skeleton isn't me. Brook yelled as he fell back and forth. My frame will be broken. Is it the ability of the devil fruit? Robin couldn't understand Itachi anymore. With Susanoo's blessing, Itachi not only had room to breathe, but also had a defense against pressure. He used chakra to condense on the soles of his feet in the ocean current to perform countercurrent recoil, and quickly arrived at the stern of the sunshine. What is Brother Tear Trough trying to do? Frankie suddenly felt nervous. Everyone looked back at Itachi with difficulty amid the violent jolts, only to see Itachi spit out the water dragon again. Water-style water dragon bullet. After spitting out one shot and hitting the stern of the Wanli Sunshine, Itachi quickly moved to the right side of the ship and continued to spit out water dragon bombs. Itachi spit out several water spout bombs from all directions and shot them at the Wanli Sunshine. After the Sunshine was hit by the water spray bombs, not only did the bubbles not burst, but it gradually adjusted its loss of control during the impact, and the hull returned to its normal falling state. Nami understood immediately. He is protecting us. Protecting the Sunshine from the falling speed of the current. Yes, the hull of the ship has come right over. Frankie had already taken advantage of Itachi's ability to spit out water spout bombs, and controlled the Sunshine to drop the ship head-on. The tear trough guy is awesome. Itachi-san. Weasel. Brook and Chopper hugged each other and were moved to tears. Caribou collapsed on the deck and said, "Oh my god, so that's what he was going to do." Everyone, we still need to be careful. Even with Itachi's help, we still can't take it lightly. Nami reminded. At this time, Robin's eyes changed, and she said, Itachi is no longer around the Sunshine. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the Straw Hats and Caribou looked at the sea current below. After some searching, Usopp took the lead in pointing out Itachi's direction. He went under the current. Everyone looked towards Usopp's direction and saw that Itachi had turned into a small bright spot of fire and was still swimming towards the deep sea. After an unknown amount of time, the Wanli Sunshine finally sank to the end of the current. Fortunately, Itachi's water dragon bomb corrected the direction of the Wanli Sunshine, and Frankie was able to use a reverse wind cannon, allowing the Wanli Sunshine to land smoothly on the seabed. Oh my god, it was so thrilling. I thought we were going to be shattered to pieces. Usopp let out a big sigh of relief after seeing that the ship was stable. Caribou knelt down and prayed. God, fortunately I have that little brother, otherwise I would have been buried under the sea with this crazy Straw Hat crew. Stop talking nonsense. Frankie hit Caribou on the head with an iron fist, causing Caribou to scream in pain. If you dare to make unnecessary complaints, I will sink you to the bottom of the sea. Speaking of which, not only Luffy and the others are missing, but Itachi is also missing. Nami looked around, worried. Luffy and the others must have been eaten by sea monsters, Robin said. Robin's words are so terrible. Chopper cried. Now that we have reached the bottom of the sea, the visibility is very poor and almost nothing can be seen. Robin stood at the bow of the ship, still looking around, when suddenly she saw a fiery red bright spot in the distance. That's Uchiha Itachi. Everyone looked in the direction she said and saw Itachi wrapped by Susanoo swimming quickly towards the Sunshine. After getting close to the Sunshine, Itachi released Susanoo and jumped into the bubble. After landing on the deck, before anyone could come up to check on Itachi, Itachi shook his head first. They were not found. What found them? Brook asked. The captain with the straw hat, the samurai and the yellow hair. Itachi said. Wait, so you just protected the Sunshine and then went to find Luffy and the others? Nami was surprised. Itachi just let out a light sigh and came to the bow of the ship. His Sharingan appeared again, and Itachi continued to look around. Itachi-san. Brother Itachi. Oh god. Brother Tear Trough. Brook and Chopper once again hugged each other and cried. Itachi-san, that's so considerate. Sauda, Brother Weasel is so considerate of us. God, I like Tear Trough guy. However, Brook and Chopper suddenly discovered that Caribou was also hugging them and crying bitterly. Brook and Chopper were stunned for a moment, and then they used crutches, swordsmanship, and kung fu jiu-jitsu to beat Caribou into a mess, and he lay on the ground with his head covered in lumps. It's so disgusting. Who told you to touch us? Sauda, disgusting. Usopp suddenly realized something. So, Luffy and the others are gone. Yes, their 3 targets are too small, and there is no light source. I searched a lot near the current, but couldn't find them. Itachi said. Frankie gritted his teeth and said, it's not possible to send out a diving boat in such a deep seabed. It will be crushed by the sea water. Speaking of Itachi, what was that wrapped around you just now? Nami asked. Itachi turned around, and even in the dark depths of the sea, Nami saw that his eyeballs seemed to have blood-colored patterns, which shocked Nami. Ah, if that's the case. As Itachi spoke, he turned his head sharply. He suddenly noticed a huge body passing by the hull of the ship in the dark deep sea. Itachi suddenly made a lowering gesture and said, "We'll talk about this later. There's something beside the boat." Is there something? Is there a monster? Usopp looked defensive. That's right. Itachi looked at the huge body in the darkness slowly passing by the sunshine. He said, "It has swam over." Usopp patted his chest reassuringly. "You're too nervous, Itachi. This is the deep sea, and there will definitely be some big fish. Speaking of which, we should be at about 7,000 meters deep in the sea now." Frankie continued. Robin said, "I remember Kemi said that Fishmen Island is about 10,000 meters under the sea." 10,000 meters, does that mean we have to dive another 3,000 meters to reach Fishman Island? Chopper jumped up and said. Speaking of which, Luffy and the others will sink to Fishman Island first. Luffy's bubble is too small. I don't know if it has burst or not. In such a deep sea, there must not be enough air. It is really too dangerous. Usopp rubbed his chin and thought. Nami picked up the end of the safety rope on the side and said angrily, "I told them to fasten the safety rope, but these guys just didn't listen. It's useless to say anything now. Let's look around. I have lighting capabilities." Frankie puffed out his chest. Upon hearing about the lighting function, Chopper said excitedly, "Frankie, have your eyes been modified to emit light?" Frankie smiled confidently and exposed his chest. Frankie. Nye headlights. Seeing the light coming from Frankie's chest, everyone fainted. Itachi couldn't help but cough. Really weird. Just when the light appeared, Itachi suddenly realized something was wrong. Look around. Chopper, Nami, and Usopp looked around, and all three of them were scared to tears. What Itachi said just now is true. Yes, there is a big fish, but this is too big. Usopp screamed. I saw that Wanli Sunshine was surrounded by all kinds of giant fish. Some fish even have bigger eyes than Wanli Sunshine. Itachi was also shocked by the sight before him. He had never seen such a big fish before, and there were so many of them. If you pick one out at random, it will be bigger than Orochimaru's 10,000 snakes. Frankie jumped up in front of the rudder, fired the cannon and escaped from the circle of giant fish. We must be very careful, and we must be quiet when looking for Luffy. Frankie is not worried about the quality of the sunshine. What he is worried about is that these fish can easily burst the coated bubbles of the sunshine by just touching them. As soon as he said this, Chopper, Usopp and Brook started shouting. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji. Where are you? Come back quickly. Nami spread his hands helplessly. Whatever, since there are bubbles, they won't spread outside. While shouting, Brook suddenly thought of something. By the way, this is the deep sea. In the deep sea, the eyes of living creatures have degenerated. Usopp was overjoyed when he heard this. In other words, they can't see us. Not necessarily. Maybe some creatures have evolved eyes. Robin crossed his arms. Before she finished speaking, Usopp and Chopper were already making faces outside. But a giant fish suddenly jumped outside, frightening the two of them so much that they jumped 3 feet high. By the way, where did that pirate go? Nami looked around on the deck, and when she was distracted for a moment, the guy disappeared. Kesso, can't you let your guard down even on the ship? Usopp took out his slingshot. Usopp added, that's not right. His hands and feet are tied, aren't they? Ah, Brook held the untied rope. He's untied. Chopper saw the rope and screamed in panic. Is it hiding in a corner? Maybe. It's really annoying. Nami was also looking around. In the wooden barrel containing the rope next to the stairs, Caribou, who had turned into mud, was hiding inside and laughing. Hiding in a corner. Then I will hide it in the woman's room as you wish. Hey, it just so happens that Straw Hat Luffy's fighting trio is gone, and only one Itachi brother is left. Looking at his abilities, it would definitely be inappropriate to cause a scene on the ship, so I will. The more Caribou thought about it, the more he laughed. Smirking, he suddenly found a pair of eyes with blood-colored patterns staring at him silently. Whoa. Caribou was so frightened that even the man in the bucket jumped up. Brother Itachi, why are you so mysterious? Should he be thrown into the sea, or should he be thrown into the sea with both the man and the bucket? Itachi said calmly, but Caribou couldn't stop trembling from his mud-covered body in the bucket. Frankie stepped forward and nailed the barrel tightly with a wooden hammer. Now you don't have to worry about him coming out. We were careless just now. This guy is a Logia user. He can become like mud. If we really want him to. Let me out. Brother in swimming trunks, Brother Weasel. I am willing to be your slave. Let me out. Itachi was still looking at the barrel, he said calmly. If I hear you speak again, you will be thrown into the sea. As soon as these words came out, Caribou was so frightened that he could no longer move. At this time, Nami suddenly noticed that Chopper was lying on the ground. Hey Chopper, what's wrong with you? Chopper stuck out his tongue and spoke a little weakly. I don't know, it suddenly became very hot. Hot. After hearing what Chopper said, Nami also noticed that the temperature around her was rising. Itachi also noticed the rise in temperature. He took a look, pointed ahead and said, we should be reaching the submarine volcano ahead. Nami looked forward and said, no, we have arrived at a volcanic deposit. You have to get out of here quickly. There are already signs of eruption ahead. It would be terrible if there is an eruption. When Frankie saw this, he immediately used a miniature wind cannon to get out of here. But at this moment, countless tentacles suddenly stretched out towards them from the bottom of the Wanli Sunshine. Whoa, carnivorous tubeworm. Before Chopper could shout, Frankie used the wind cannon again. The sunshine had just escaped from here, and Usopp used the light to see a crab with pincers bigger than the hull of the ship. It's a big crab on the bottom of the sea. Miniature wind coming to spray. Frankie fired again. Besides, miniature wind coming to spray. Besides, miniature wind coming to spray. After dodging giant strange fish and underwater creatures several times in a row, Itachi quickly realized something was wrong. Bubbles are getting smaller and smaller. Frankie nodded. Every time the wind blows, it consumes a lot of air, and the oxygen on the ship becomes less and less. At this time, Chopper suddenly pointed forward. Everyone, look, there is a bright place. Have we arrived at Fishman Island? Everyone looked in the direction Chopper pointed, and there was really a big ball of light. Itachi just glanced at it and quickly rushed to the bow. This is not some Fishman Island. I saw that the source of the light was the lamp on the head of a giant lantern fish. The lantern on its head alone is larger than that of Wanli Sunshine. Ah, I was cheated. Usopp and Nami screamed. Oops, this is a trap for deep-sea monsters. Frankie said that he was about to use the wind cannon to escape again. Stop using that trick again. Itachi suddenly shouted loudly. Frankie looked up suddenly and saw that Itachi had rushed out of the bubble. After breaking out of the water, Itachi immediately activated his Susanna and quickly formed seals in his hands. Masaga, is it that move again? Usopp took a step forward. Itachi instantly formed a water-style seal and condensed chakra in his mouth. Water-style waterspout. I saw the water dragon rushing towards the giant lantern fish in a hovering state. The waterspout rushed towards the giant lantern fish, pushing the lantern fish back continuously. Robin noticed the difference. It seems different from the move Itachi used just now. Is it more powerful? Itachi saw the right moment and formed the seal again. He took a deep breath, and a large amount of fire-style chakra swirled in his mouth. Fire-style, the art of fire dragon. Weasel spit out a huge fire dragon. In the large gap formed by the waterspout, a fire dragon wandered wantonly in the deep sea and hit the giant lantern fish directly, burning the entire face of the lantern fish. Coupled with the huge impact of the fire dragon, the lantern fish rushed directly to the seabed rock call in the distance. Seeing this scene, Usopp and Chopper's eyes nearly popped out. Robin, who had just discovered the difference, felt a drop of sweat fall from his forehead. First use the rolled water dragon to create space, and then release the fire dragon to cause damage. It's really unimaginable that such a huge fire can be seen on the bottom of the sea. Frankie still had his hands on the rudder, and he didn't know what to do for a while. I don't know whether I should be surprised that he can spit fire, or that he can spit fire in this way. Nami covered her mouth and looked at Itachi blankly. Seeing that the lantern fish was forced back, Itachi relieved Susanna and returned to the boat. Get out of here quickly. If this big guy gets into trouble later, he will use that air-consuming launch again. Itachi reminded Frankie. Oh, yucksy. Frankie pulled the rudder, immediately moving the sunshine away from the giant lantern fish. Brother Itachi. Uchiha Itachi. Itachi-san. Usopp, Chopper and Brook rushed up and hugged Itachi's thigh, and Brook even hugged Itachi's upper body. This made Itachi, who was usually aloof, a little awkward. "You three, what are you going to do? It's so awesome, Itachi." Usopp was thinking how great it would be if Itachi could always be on the sunshine with them. It was true that Luffy and the three of them were monsters with incredible combat power, but in comparison, Itachi only spent a brief moment with them, and he felt how good it was to have someone with strong combat power and reliability by his side. "Brother Itachi, can you teach me your water dragon and fire dragon?" Chopper's furry face rubbed against Itachi's thigh. "Well, I can teach you to try it if I have a chance. Itachi actually likes this little creature that looks like a tanuki. I want to learn too, I want to learn too." Usopp raised his hands repeatedly. "Itachi-san," Brook raised his empty eyes. Even without flesh and blood, Itachi could notice Brook's deep affection with embarrassment. "This is the first time I can't help but want to say to a man, fatty." Before he could finish speaking, Nami had appeared from behind the three of them. "Don't be so disrespectful, Itachi." After the fist wind roared, the three of them lay on the ground with their heads covered. Itachi looked at Nami and broke into a cold sweat. He really felt like Nami was the captain of the ship. As soon as she saw Itachi looking at her, Nami immediately transformed into a well-behaved kitten. "Thank you, Itachi. Thanks so much for having you." "No need to thank you, after all I am asking you to give me a ride," Itachi said. Robin lightly covered his mouth and smiled, looking at Itachi with admiration. Speaking of which, after all this searching, Luffy, Samurai and Wangfu are even harder to find. Weasel jumped onto the bow of the boat, and at this time Frankie had already turned on the two-eyed headlights of the little lion on the Wanli Sunshine. Yes, looking for the three of them in this vast ocean is like looking for a needle in a haystack. At this moment, Itachi looked ahead again. What it is? Frankie was now sensitive when he heard Itachi speaking. He quickly raised the bow of the boat and looked in the direction Itachi was pointing. It was okay not to look at it, but the sight made everyone in the straw hats jump in panic again. "I saw a huge shadow on the edge of the rock call where the lanternfish crashed." When the lion's headlight illuminated the huge figure, they suddenly discovered that it was a huge person. "I saw that this man's huge head alone was much bigger than that of a lanternfish. This is the bald sea monster." Usopp was extremely frightened, and as he screamed, the huge bald sea monster stretched out its fist. The giant lanternfish, whose face was scorched by Weasel just now, was about to get angry and rushed towards the Wanli Sunshine. "I'm going to die." Chopper was so frightened that he almost burst into tears. "That's terrible." Frankie immediately wanted to use the wind to spray, but just when he was about to pull the button, he found that Itachi had already reached out and pressed the rudder. Looking at where the fist landed, he didn't mean to attack us. Before Itachi finished speaking, the bald sea monster punched the lanternfish on the head. "Kolang, I told you not to do this. It takes me a few times to tell you that you can't eat the boat. Captain Vanderdecken will be angry." After being hit by the bald sea monster, a big bump appeared on the head of the lanternfish. It turned its burned face and looked at the huge bald sea monster with aggrieved eyes. "This is saved." Nami looked at the giant sea monster with sweat on his face. "No matter what, let's run away first." Usopp asked Frankie to quickly pull the rudder. But he suddenly found that everyone had stopped moving. Just because behind the huge bald sea monster, another even bigger shadow appeared. "The things here really surprise me." Itachi refreshed his knowledge one after another. "What? Again?" Chopper screamed. The huge shadow gradually approached and appeared in everyone's field of vision. "I saw that it was a huge sunken ship still floating in the sea." When Brook saw the ship, he let out a pitiful scream. "That's Vanderdecken's ship." Vanderdecken. Everyone looked at Brook. Nami. Could it be that? Usopp. That's Chopper. Ghost ship. Gah. Brook screamed again. Usopp slapped him and turned him around. "Don't be afraid anymore." After turning around, Brook pointed at the huge ship tremblingly. "That's the famous ghost ship captain, Vanderdecken's Flying Dutchman. It's a ship that shouldn't exist in this world. It is said that hundreds of years ago, on a stormy night, the captain pushed the crew into the sea one after another and killed them all. He also spit on God and insulted God. God punished him and his ship to wander on the bottom of the sea forever, and to be tortured by fate forever. The captain of this ship is called Vanderdecken, and his ship's name is the Flying Dutchman. This is the ghost ship. After Brooke finished speaking, Usopp and Chopper were already running in circles around the deck, crying as they ran. Stop arguing, Frankie waved his hand. Isn't the ship Brooke himself took aboard a ghost ship? There's nothing scary about it. Maybe there are some interesting skeletons on the ship. Frankasan. Brooke's body tilted at a 30-degree angle. Robin chuckled, and then Itachi discovered that Robin was drawing the shape of the ghost ship in his notebook. We have even encountered the legendary octopus and sea monster Kraken, which means that the legendary ghost ship is real. As soon as these words came out, Usopp and Chopper cried louder, and even Nami rubbed her face and screamed. It is indeed a ghost ship. Hey Robin, now is not the time to scare them. Frankie was helpless. Robin chuckled again, and then she looked at Itachi. Uchiha Itachi, it seems you haven't expressed your stance yet. You were the first to notice the dangers these times, and you saw them clearly. Yeah, it's clear. While several people were panicking, Itachi had already taken back the Mangekyo Sharingan that had just risen. Just now he was thinking about whether to destroy this ghost ship. But after a few glances, Itachi gave up the idea. He looked at Brooke. Mr. Skeleton, did you just say that God would punish him by wandering on the bottom of the sea forever? Yes, Itachi-san, you will wander at the bottom of the sea forever. Brooke was still touching his skinless cheek in horror. Itachi nodded after hearing this and pointed to the ghost ship in the sky. Then why, there is a rope tied to the humanoid sea monster under the ghost ship. Everyone looked closely and saw the giant bald sea monster lecturing the giant lantern fish with one hand, and in the other hand, he was actually holding a large rope tied under the entire hull of the ghost ship. Huh, except for Robin, Usopp and the others all had their eyes widened. Nami said, there is indeed a rope tied to the bald sea monster. Could it be? That's right, just as you thought. Itachi crossed his arms and looked at Nami. This so-called ghost ship should behave the same way on the bottom of the sea as the ship that attacked us. It was pulled by monsters. It's just that the ship is too big, so we have to find monsters like this to pull it. Besides, there are people on board. Itachi stared closely at the dark figure standing on the bow of the boat. At this moment, on the Flying Dutchman, a black shadow stretched out its webbed palm like a fish man, pointing at the huge bald sea monster Ko-Ko-Lang. Cuckoo-Lang, Poseidon, you were right. If you eat the boat, you will not be able to get the treasure. Look at those stupid humans driving a nice ship. Judging from this, there must be a lot of treasures on the ship. Sink them for me. Cuckoo-Lang raised his fist and shouted, wow. Everyone on the Sunshine was still studying the rope when they saw that Koguchiro was aiming his punch at them this time. Frankie, use the wind cannon. Nami shouted back in panic. It won't work. If I use it again, I need to replenish the cola energy. It's too late. Frankie looked at Itachi subconsciously, and he found that not only was Itachi not looking at the bald sea monster, he was also looking in other directions. That's Kraken, it's attacking the sea monster, and... As Itachi muttered, the sea monster Kraken suddenly accelerated and ran quickly, and hit Koguchiro in the face with a tentacle punch. This scene shocked Frankie and the others. Sea monster, how could it be? Koguchiro was knocked to the ground by this heavy blow, and the dark shadows on the boat also murmured in confusion. The sea monster Kraken, why would you attack Cuckoo-Lang? Hey Poseidon, fight back. Hearing this, Koguchi stood up and was about to punch again when Kraken's tentacle punches hit Koguchi's face like a machine gun. What's going on? Usopp said in surprise. They're back. Itachi looked over Kraken's head. Above Kraken, Luffy, who was in the bubble, stretched out his hand. That's enough, stop it. Kraken heard Luffy speak and let go of his hand. Cuckoo-Lang's face had swollen into a pig's head and he fell to the ground with a roar. Hey, look at the head of the sea monster, that's Luffy. Brook pointed at Kraken. Above Kraken's head, Luffy, Zoro and Sanji were crowded into a bubble. Luffy waved to everyone excitedly in the bubble, and he slid the bubble back to the Wongli Sunshine. I'm back. Luffy waved to everyone excitedly. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji. Great, you are still alive. Chopper burst into tears. Where have you been now? I thought you were in danger. Nami breathed a sigh of relief. Zoro frowned slightly, these guys are really worrying. He actually got separated from us. As soon as Sanji saw Nami and Robin, his nosebleeds couldn't stop coming out. Here we go again, Sanji. Usopp was helpless. Sanji's condition still hasn't improved. It seems that he needs to continue stimulating treatment. Chopper took out the photos of Nami and Robin. When Luffy and the others returned to the sunshine, Itachi found that Kraken had fallen under the sunshine and raised the sunshine above his head. It's better to be comfortable in your own home. Luffy jumped onto the lawn of the deck and stretched out. Sanji and I's bubbles were burst, so we both hid in Zoro's bubble. I almost died. Don't do such worrying things in the future, Nami said. Ah, it's okay, it's okay. Speaking of which, it's great that everyone is okay. Luffy raised his hand happily. Aang. Chopper nodded vigorously and looked at Itachi beside him. We are safe, thanks to Brother Itachi. Sauda Sauda, Brother Weasel. Usopp and Chopper couldn't help but hug Itachi's thigh again. Itachi looked helpless. Itachi. Zoro still looked at Itachi very warily. Yeah, Nami recounted what happened when he came here just now. Luffy happily jumped to Itachi's side after hearing this. Tear trough man, you are such a reliable person. It's okay, it's all what I should do. Itachi's calmness and Luffy's excitement were such a stark contrast. Luffy wanted to blurt out those words, but Itachi asked him first. Speaking of which, did you really conquer this sea monster? Weasel pointed at his feet, and Kraken had already steadily raised the boat above his head. Yes, I want to use a small squid to pull the boat and become a senior diving navigator. Luffy smiled and showed his big teeth. Squid, this guy is obviously an octopus, right? Usopp looked down at the side of the boat. It's smart to use this guy to come back, Luffy. Itachi said. Hehehehe. Luffy smiled and commanded Kraken. Yoshi, little squid, start pulling the boat and set off. After feeling Luffy's domineering power, Kraken held up the sunshine and began to move forward on the bottom of the sea. Speaking of pulling the boat, it won't burst the bubbles with just a little force. Usopp was a little worried. Seeing Luffy conquering Kraken, everyone's attention was attracted and they completely forgot about the ghost ship beside them. Seeing that the sunshine was about to leave, the people on the boat roared, "How can we let him escape? Chase him quickly." But at this moment, someone discovered the abnormality first. That's not right, Captain, look at the volcano in front of you. The captain of the Flying Dutchman, Vanderdecken X, took a closer look and saw that the volcano had begun to erupt. Oh no, kids, get out quickly. Cuckoo Lang, Poseidon, pull the boat. Hearing Vanderdecken's voice, Cuckoo Lang responded quickly, grabbed the rope, raised the boat and ran away. Usopp looked at Kuguchiro running in front of him and sighed, the bald sea monster really pulls the boat. Oops, the volcano is about to erupt. Itachi suddenly noticed behind him. The distance is too close, we have to escape quickly. Nami looked at the volcano not far away. Luffy, tell Kraken, we need to run away quickly. Yoshi, hey little squid, get out quickly. Luffy jumped up and shouted. We seem to be on the way to escape now. Itachi stood on the bow of the ship, looking at Kraken who was running wildly below. Robin stood beside him and was also looking at Kraken, sighing, it's really ugly to run away. Is there a connection between minds? Usopp wondered. What does it mean? It must also know how terrifying a volcanic eruption is. Frankie looked behind him, where magma and thick fog were erupting. Don't walk so fast, I want to see the volcano erupt with my own eyes. Luffy was still smiling. One look at us will kill us, Nami said angrily. At this moment, a volcano next to the sunshine ship also erupted. Lava and mudslides will cover the hull of the ship in an instant. Kraken, who was pulling the boat, was so frightened that he opened fire. Several tentacles flew like Hot Wheels and ran forward desperately. I'm going to die. Chopper was hot and scared, jumping back and forth on the boat. Nami, hasn't Fishman Island arrived yet? Usopp cried as he jumped back and forth. Right away, keep going, Nami said, looking at the pointer. Go straight. Usopp looked forward, his eyes suddenly as long as his nose. There is a bottomless abyss ahead. Luffy, we must not jump down, it must be hell, hell. That's it, little squid, come on. Luffy jumped onto the bow of the boat excitedly. The volcanic eruption behind him became more and more intense, and the magma was almost approaching the hull of the ship. Everyone held their breath and concentrated on this shocking moment. Just before the magma was about to swallow the sunshine, Kraken jumped into the abyss, escaping the magma. Oh my god, I'm safe. Chopper almost peed with fear. Wait, Frankie pointed upward, what is that? Oh no, it's mudslides and rocks from a volcanic eruption. Above the abyss, countless rocks larger than the hull of the ship were seen rolling down the abyss together. If a rock of that magnitude hits us, we will be shattered to pieces. Usopp rubbed his face vigorously. Little squid, get out of the way. Luffy directed Kraken, and Kraken jumped forward suddenly, but the mudslide was too dense and it was impossible to avoid it. Hey Luffy, Zoro looked at Luffy. You hold my legs, and I'll go outside the bubble and split these rocks. Zoro pulled out the autumn water. Yoshi, what a great idea. Luffy stretched out his arms and grabbed Zoro tightly. But just as Zoro was about to jump out, Robin had already used his fruit power, grew a hand on Zoro's body, and held Zoro tightly. Absolutely not. Why, Robin? Zoro looked at her confused. This is already a deep sea of 7,000 meters. If you go out, you will be crushed by the sea water. What should we do? We can't be stoned to death, right? Zoro gritted his teeth and looked upward. A stone was about to hit their heads. If we can buy a little time to leave the trench, we can still escape. Before Nami could finish speaking, he heard the sound of someone jumping out of a bubble above his head. Who's out? Luffy raised his head. That's Uchiha Itachi. Zoro stared at Itachi, who jumped out of the bubble. If he goes out so rashly, he will be crushed by the sea water. Uchiha Itachi. Itachi, does he still want to use that water dragon? Nami felt that a mudslide of this scale was not something that the water dragon could stop. Brother Itachi, come back quickly. You will die. Chopper jumped up, trying to use fur to strengthen Itachi. That guy, Zoro was worried. Itachi, who had just emerged from the bubble, was already being pressed until his veins bulged. His Mangekyo Sharingan has appeared. Although it's overkill, there's nothing we can do about it. Susanoo. Itachi's body began to be wrapped in fiery red bones in the center. The fiery red shiny bones grew rapidly, and almost instantly the upper body of a huge skeleton warrior appeared. Ah, that's right. Luffy and the others looked at Itachi in shock. I saw Itachi wrapped in Susanoo waving a hand, and Susanoo, who was rapidly transforming into a skeleton, had already transformed into a 10-fist sword. As Itachi waved his hand, the 10-fist sword exploded with a fiery red slashing wave. This sword wave instantly cut all the falling stones in half. The momentum of this fiery red sword wave is even greater than a volcanic eruption. Itachi-san. All the mudslides were cut in half. Brook and Usopp both held their heads. Zoro, who was best at wielding a sword, was stunned. Such a level of slashing. Zoro even felt that the intensity of Itachi's slash was far beyond his own 3,000 worlds. Seeing that the mudslide was successfully blocked, Itachi immediately wanted to swing his 10-fist sword again to completely cut open the rocks around the ship's hull. Just as he waved again, Usopp had already set up his large slingshot bag. Nirvana Green Star Sargassum. Usopp shot a plant seed, which exploded instantly after contacting the stone. Countless green algae grew wildly, blocking all the stones cut off by Weasel. Usopp, you've become stronger, Nami exclaimed in shock. That's right, didn't I tell you when we first met, that I had broken away from Chopper and your cowardly trio? Speaking of, Usopp couldn't help but rub his eyes as he thought of his experiences in the past 2 years. The things I have encountered in the past 2 years make those who hear it sad and cry. Teacher Hercules and I have been losing weight and getting stronger. Oh, by the way, are you interested in hearing my story? Usopp suddenly perked up. I first fell to an island full of human-eating plants. They were all. As he spoke, he looked at the crowd and found that no one seemed willing to listen to his story. Luffy, Chopper, Nami and Frankie all surrounded Itachi with eyes shining. Tear trough man, what was that you used just now? Luffy looked Itachi up and down, trying to see where Susan was hiding. Itachi, you must have summoned a huge god of war mecha just now, right? Frankie was very interested in this aspect. Hiss once. Is it a super soul giant? Chopper jumped back and forth. Everyone. Before Usopp could finish speaking, Nami smiled at him. Usopp, Let's listen to your story next time. This time it was Usopp who was depressed. Ah soul, speaking of which, I am indeed a soul. Before Brook could finish speaking, Nami punched him away. Speaking of which, Itachi, what kind of devil fruit ability do you have? How come I see you using so many things? Nami asked him. It's a long story. Itachi raised his eyebrows slightly. All the people he knew combined couldn't match the excitement of the people on this ship jumping up and down. He was not used to this from just now. In short, you can think that this is something I was born with, and it belongs to the limit of blood inheritance. The limit of blood inheritance. Luffy's eyes shined more and more as he listened. Sounds cool, what is that? Sanji, who was watching Robin's nosebleed, suddenly returned to normal when he heard this. The limit of blood inheritance. I do know the blood factor. It is something that can change the structure of the human body, edit human genes, and give birth to modified humans and clones. As Sanji spoke, everyone's eyes stopped on him again. In that case, is Itachi-san a reformed person? Brook asked. Well, it seems that you are not talking about the same thing as the yellow-haired boy. Itachi shook his head. Just when everyone was wondering about Itachi's ability, the Sunshine's hull suddenly trembled violently. As a navigator, Nami was the first to react. She immediately looked above her head and found that the green algae launched by Usopp had disappeared, and the rocks began to fall down again. And the most terrible thing is that one of the falling stones has already hit Kraken on the head, knocking this guy unconscious. Now the Wanli Sunshine has been separated from Kraken's tentacles and is falling towards the bottom of the abyss. Oops, everyone, look at Kraken. Nami pointed down, and everyone looked immediately, only to see that Kraken had fainted, and the Wanli Sunshine was slowly falling like it. The situation is not good. Frankie rushed to the rudder and began to control the Sunshine. Seeing that the ship was bumping constantly, Itachi looked around and was about to jump out of the bubble again, but at this moment, a woman's hand suddenly grew on Itachi's shoulder and stopped him. When Itachi was shocked, Robin was smiling and waving to him. Itachi, you can rest assured next time. With Nami and Frankie, we'll be fine. Yes Itachi. Sanji also came over and patted Itachi on the shoulder. Although I still don't know where you came from, but after listening to what they said, you have done a lot along the way. Itachi's heart was slightly touched, and this feeling made him unable to express it for a moment. Especially, Itachi, you protected Robin-chan. Sanji spun around and came to Robin's side. As soon as he saw Robin's erect white rabbit, Sanji spurted blood and took off, then landed next to Nami. Also, Namaswang. Sanji raised his nostrils and sniffed at Nami, but Nami punched him from the bow to the stern of the boat. You didn't see what I was doing, so don't bother me. Seeing Sanji take off with a nosebleed and fall to the stern of the boat, the excitement that Itachi had just risen dissipated. He thought Sanji was a normal person, but now he looked like a tanuki with a long nose. Hey everyone, sit tight, we're about to land. Frankie shook the rudder and shouted. Yoshi, Frankie, make the hull at a 30-degree angle and fire the resistance wind cannon for stable control. Nami commanded. Okay, the coke energy is ready. Chopper and Usopp, who transformed into adults, loaded the coke and jumped out of the cabin to stand by. Itachi was shocked by Chopper's transformation. Civet cats can actually grow up. After hearing this, Chopper shrank and came to Itachi's side and yelled. Oh reindeer, reindeer, wow, Chopper, Chopper. Brother Weasel, the road is full of obstacles, and the road is full of obstacles. I understand, I understand. Itachi covered his ears with one hand and waved with the other. You are a reindeer, you are the cutest little animal on this ship. When Chopper heard this, he instantly became an embarrassed little deer. He said, don't listen to Brother Weasel's praises. The road is full of troubles. His face was already blooming with joy. Itachi, big brother. Zoro imitated the pronunciation of Chopper when he called Itachi. Have you recognized your elder brother so quickly? Chopper, you little brat. He picked up the knife, sat on the bow of the boat, and when he stared at Itachi again, most of his vigilance had been eliminated. Zoro felt that if he was really an enemy, then with Itachi's strength, he could easily destroy the Sunshine when the three of them were away. Maybe they really aren't enemies. Zoro didn't remind others not to take it lightly, but he still said silently in his heart that no matter what happens, he must be wary of Itachi. In this team full of fools and fools as captains, he can only do this. Well, seeing that everyone was ready, Luffy jumped onto the little lion on the bow of the boat. He raised his hands high, and as Frankie fired the wind cannon, Brook had already played the violin, and Luffy shouted like it echoed through the bottom of the sea. Fishman Island, here we come. Chapter 11, 10,000 meters under the sea, at the bottom of the trench. Finally, under Frankie's control, the Wanli Sunshine landed on the head of Kraken, who had fainted. Those are such big fish. Chopper looked above the sunshine and saw all kinds of big fish swimming slowly on the bottom of the sea. At the same time, everyone also noticed an anomaly on the bottom of the sea. Light. Why is there light in this deep sea? Robin asked first. I saw that the deep sea was filled with light that was even more dazzling than the ground. The light was so strong that I was dazzled. Although I don't have dazzling eyes. Brook said. At this time, Luffy suddenly pointed forward and shouted, "Hey, look. Right there, Nami, is that one?" Nami raised the pointer on his wrist and said with a smile, "Yes, it is in the direction facing the pointer. That's right there, Fishman Island." Everyone looked at the dazzling light and saw a huge bubble floating above the trench in the center of the seafloor surrounded by countless big fish. There are oceans, clouds, and various buildings in this bubble. It's like a small ecological circle. Itachi looked at it for a moment and sighed. Ha 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 ha, we're here. Luffy raised his hands in excitement and laughed. Frankie also matched the star patterns on both arms. Super. Attractions of the Grand Line. The dancing mermaids, the beautiful mermaid princess, the dream paradise I have longed for since I was a child, my all blue. Just as Sanji spoke, blood spurted out from his nose 3 feet high. Sanji-kun. Chopper and Usopp cried and came to Sanji. Sorry Sanji, your recovery treatment still hasn't worked. Chopper cried and said, it's best not to let him meet the real mermaid, otherwise he will die. Doctor. Usopp looked at Chopper seriously. This is Sanji's dream. That's right, instead of giving up your dreams and living in this world, it's better to watch the mermaid die happily. Sanji forced himself to stand up, eyes bursting with lustful fire. Itachi looked at Sanji silently and murmured, the yellow-haired guy, does he have hemophilia? Don't worry about him. Zoro crossed his arms. That guy has a disease that makes him bleed when he sees a woman. Sooner or later he will bleed to death. Beside him, Luffy was drooling with his big tongue out. I wonder what kind of meat is used in Fishman Island's cuisine. Luffy, wipe your saliva and ask Squid to find the entrance to Fishman Island. Nami patted Luffy and saw that Kraken had woken up. Hey, the horse has fallen. Look. Before Luffy could call Kraken, Frankie suddenly pointed forward. At some point, the big fish in front had disappeared, replaced by several huge shadows getting closer and closer. Kraken, who had just woken up, looked at it and was so frightened that its huge octopus body began to tremble non-stop. Everyone on the boat also widened their eyes, and saw several sea beasts bigger than Kraken appearing in front of them. A bunch of sea beasts. We're going to die. It took a lot of effort to get here, it was so difficult. Usopp and Chopper hugged each other. So handsome, huge sea beasts. Luffy stared at these huge sea beasts in a daze. At this moment Itachi suddenly pointed above the sea beast. These sea beasts are ridden by people. Everyone looked in the direction that Weasel pointed, and saw that there was really someone riding on the back of the sea beast. That's the fishman. On the back of the giraffe sea beast, the fishman smiled slightly and stared at Kraken. Really, Kraken, why do you listen to stupid humans? When Kraken heard this, he looked at the fishman and was so frightened that he threw the Wanli Sunshine into the air, turned around and ran away. Hey, what are you doing? Squid, Luffy said angrily. Don't worry about that for now, let's take care of ourselves. Usopp grabbed the deck. Just as he was about to flee for his life, he realized that Kraken had thrown them so hard that they were thrown directly in front of these sea beasts. We are surrounded by sea beasts. Usopp screamed. At this time, Hammond, the fishman riding on the sea beast and a combatant of the new Fishman pirate group, spoke. You are the Straw Hats, right? Luffy Kaido. Who are you and why do you know about us? Of course you will know. You are the ones who once crushed Aaron's group of Fishman pirates. When the fishman was talking, Nami suddenly noticed that the tattoo on the fishman looked very similar to the tattoos of the Aran Empire at that time. If that's the case, it's easy to say, I will kill you directly. But I heard that 2 years ago, in order to protect Xiaoba, a cadre of the former Aran group, you actually attacked the Tianlong people. Just like our hero from Fishman Island, Fisher Tiger. Robin had some reaction when he heard the name. That's the legendary hero of Fishman Island who liberated Marihoa's Draco slaves. Ah, Harmon. Hammond smiled and said, I really don't know what to do with you. Do you want to take action? Although Itachi couldn't figure out what they were talking about, he was already prepared. Zoro pulled out the knife and said, I think it's very possible. Hammond continued. Then you first have to tell me, are you enemies or friends? Of course, I will give you the right to choose. Are you going to join our new Fishman pirate group, or are you rejecting it? Of course, if you refuse, you will sink here. What did you say? Luffy was very angry. Upon seeing this, Nami immediately said to Frankie, Frankie, refill the fuel. Refueling for what? Frankie wondered. How could Luffy and the others listen to them and join some kind of Fishman pirate group? Having said that, this is a 10,000-meter deep sea, and we have no way to fight. If we really do fight, the opponent is a fishman, and our chance of winning is 0. Quote. So we have no choice but to run away. After Nami finished speaking, Brook and Chopper exclaimed loudly, and Usopp hurriedly ran to replenish fuel. We can only use up all the air in the bubble and see if we can directly spray it into the interior of Fishman Island through the wind. Indeed, otherwise we would have no other way to survive. Robin said. On the sea beast, the combatants of the new Fishman pirate group, the blue-ringed octopus Fishman, and the killer, Anzang were drinking. He said while drinking, it seems they are a little panicked. Are you planning something? Whatever. Hammond smiled disdainfully. It's all the cleverness of stupid humans. This is our territory. Despicable and despicable species like humans cannot afford to make waves. He shouted towards the sunshine below. Hey, Straw Hat Pirates, have you made up your mind? Are you willing to be our subordinates? Luffy was stunned when he heard this, and he laughed. I don't want it, Baga. As he spoke, Luffy raised his face and made a big grimace. Why do I want to be your subordinate? You are such idiots. Upon hearing this, several fishmen suddenly became furious. So, are you rejecting our invitation? Then you are just sinful and despicable human beings, then just go and die. While Hammond was shouting, the sea lion among the sea beasts had already rushed towards the Wanli sunshine. Do you want to do something? Luffy immediately accelerated to second gear, and Zoro also stood on the bow. Luffy, be careful, this is 10,000 meters under the sea. Zoro looked a little embarrassed. Sanji has also returned to his normal state, staring nervously at the charging sea lion. Just as the fighting trio was thinking about how to fight this big guy from the bottom of the sea, Itachi had already stood in front of Luffy. Luffy, your fighting style is not suitable here, I will do it. Seeing Itachi step forward, everyone's eyes were on Itachi except Frankie, who was preparing for the wind spray. Itachi-san, are you going to use that soul giant again? You still have to be careful, Brother Weasel, the murlocs at the bottom of the sea are very dangerous. Chopper cried. Luffy's eyes shone. Tear Trough Man, can I see the giant you summoned again? Not really. Itachi shook his head slightly. His Sharingan was already looking at the sea lion. Although it's quite big, you don't need to use a machete to kill a chicken. The moment he looked at the sea lion was shocked and froze in place. Oh, what's wrong with the sea lion? Lan Zhang, the blue-ringed octopus fishman, was still drinking wine, and when he rolled his eyes, he noticed that the sea lion had stopped moving. Hey, sea lion, what are you doing standing still? Hurry up and tear the Straw Hat Pirates apart. Hammond stood up and shouted. But what he didn't see was that the sea lion's face was contorting in extreme pain. It had just looked at Itachi, and it had already entered the Genjutsu purgatory where it endured endless pain of tearing its body apart. This kind of beast is huge but has no mental resistance. Facing Itachi's Genjutsu, it is completely a lamb to be slaughtered. Just a moment later, the sea lion rolled his eyes and fell to the ground. Sea lion, what's going on? Hammond exclaimed. Luffy was also shocked. Tear Trough Man, what did you do? His first thought was conquerors. Could Itachi be conquerors? Again, that move called genjutsu that can produce hallucinations? Zoro asked, imitating Itachi's pronunciation. That's right. Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan has appeared. Hey sea lion, have you not had enough to eat? Why do you want to take action? Why do you behave like this? Don't let me go back and kill you. Hey, sea lion. Hammond stood up and yelled wildly. As Hammond shouted, he bit the moray eel's unique hooked mouth and glared viciously at everyone on the Wanli Sunshine. You despicable, stupid human beings, you must have used some means. If this is the case, then we will personally take your lives. Hey, Lan Zhang, Kashikoba, come on. Hammond waved his hand, and the cadres of the new Fishman pirates behind him leaned down to rush down, but at this moment, they all noticed Itachi standing in front of Luffy. Where did that lowly human come from? Is it a new recruit of the Straw Hats? I don't know, just kill one piece. Lan Zhang took out his knife and jumped off the sea monster giraffe. But after such a jump, Lan Zhang had no follow-up actions and fell straight from dozens of meters into the sea to the bottom of the sea. Anzang. When Hammond looked at Lan Zhang in confusion, he found that Kashikoba was the same. He clearly jumped up to kill the Straw Hat Pirates, but fell to the ground uncontrollably in the next second. Hammond swallowed, and he looked at the sunshine again. This time, before he saw other people's faces, he saw Itachi's Sharingan first. The moment Hammond looked at Itachi, he suddenly found himself tied to the chopping block of the slaughterhouse. As soon as Hammond raised his head, he saw a bearded fisherman with a ferocious face holding a sharp boning knife, scraping off the fish skin from his body piece by piece, and cutting off his body with one knife. Finally, he put his fish head into the pot and fried it. The sharp sound of oil splashing and his screams were immediately intertwined. Ah, what's going on? What's going on? While Hammond's screams were echoing, countless fishermen and countless boning knives were cutting, and blasting countless Hammonds into pieces. Although it was only a moment in reality, in the world of Tsukuyomi, Hammond seemed to have been reincarnated in hell for a century. As the pain tortured his consciousness, Hammond's body also fell to the bottom of the sea like other cadres of the new Fishman pirates. It's really a strange Tsukuyomi dream. Itachi originally wanted to impose his most commonly used Tsukuyomi punishment, but he didn't expect that the Fishman himself imagined such a way. After seeing several fishmen all fall into the Tsukuyomi world and being tortured by genjutsu until they lose mobility, Itachi also put away Mangekyo. Itachi could feel that although his body had returned to the healthy and strong state of 17 or 18 years old, the clarity and power of his eyes had also returned to their full state. But Itachi thought about it again, and he felt that Mangekyo Sharingan's ninjutsu could be used sparingly or sparingly. Frequent use would inevitably cause wear and tear. That's it. Solved. Just a moment. Across the sea. Separated by the bubble, there is still a distance of 100 meters. The enemy will be eliminated. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji stumblingly answered each other. Soon, Luffy's shock turned into surprise. He excitedly stretched out his long rubber hand and grabbed Itachi. See Gui, Teardrop Man, your Enjutsu is so strong. Enjutsu, you're talking about genjutsu, right? Itachi looked at him helplessly. Yes, genjutsu, genjutsu. Luffy cheered excitedly. Zoro looked at Itachi, a drop of cold sweat sliding down his forehead. In just such a moment, so many enemies were eliminated without touching. It's really scary. Sanji also broke into a cold sweat. Fortunately, Itachi is not our enemy. Why do I feel that his abilities are more terrifying than those of a bear? While they were sighing, Nami stood back on the deck. She was about to tell everyone that the wind spray was ready, but at this moment she suddenly found that the fishmen were lying on the ground. Everyone, we are going to prepare. Nami didn't say anything else. Robin had just been paying attention to the progress of Fenglai Jet and did not look ahead. When she turned around, she found that all the enemies were gone, leaving only a few bewildered sea beasts. What's going on? Before anyone could wonder, Usopp had already stood up and furled the sail. He shouted excitedly, "Everyone, hold on tight, we are going to escape now." That's right, the wind is blowing, ready to launch. Frankie pulled the button, and the maximum charged wind spurt suddenly lifted the sunshine and flew straight to the bubbles on Fishman Island. Ha ha ha, now those fishmen can't catch us, they can't catch us. Baga, baga. Usopp made faces at the fishman on the sea beast's back. But as he was doing it, he discovered something was wrong. What about the fishman on the back of the sea beast? Hey Frankie, why did we fire the wind cannon? The fishmen were all killed by the ferret. Sanji shouted towards Frankie at the rudder. What? Frankie's eyes widened in shock. He looked towards the sea beast and saw that the fishmen were no longer riding on the back of the sea beast, but fell into the sand on the seabed below. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You didn't tell us to escape or to fire the wind cannon. Ignore everyone for now, this is all we can do. Let's hold on tight and rush into the Fishman Island in one go. Nami said, holding on to the handrail. Hey ha ha ha, let's go. Luffy jumped onto the bow of the boat excitedly. Just when Itachi was about to stand still, he realized that the propelling speed and upward angle of the wind cannon were too great, and Itachi fell directly from the bow to the stern of the ship. Uchiha Itachi. When Robin screamed and wanted to stretch out his 10,000 flowers arm to stop Itachi, Chopper arrived first and caught Itachi with enhanced fur, allowing Itachi to land firmly in his elastic fur. Be careful, brother Itachi. Chopper flicked Itachi to the edge of the fence. Thanks to you, Chopper, thank you. Itachi glanced at Chopper with relief. What are you talking about? Don't praise others so casually. They won't listen. Baga will block the road. Kuonuo will block the road. Chopper laughed coyly. Chopper, hold on. Usopp shouted at him. Chopper came to his senses and quickly grabbed the fence. After being super propelled by the Fenglai cannon, the Wanli Sunshine rushed into the bubble of the Fishman Island at an extremely fast speed. Luffy was about to shout excitedly that he had come in, but everyone on the boat suddenly discovered that after rushing past the huge bubbles on Fishman Island, the bubbles on the Sunshine had disappeared due to the friction with the huge bubbles. Bubbles, it's been absorbed. Robin said in shock. Before she finished speaking, Brook suddenly pointed forward and shouted. Look, what is that? After passing the first layer of huge bubbles, they came to an outer space with only air, and there was a layer of bubbles surrounding the Fishman Island. Robin instantly realized why. This is a double-structured package bubble. After ordinary ships rush in, they will quickly fall downwards, or they will get stuck in the layer without sea water and cannot move. Then do it again. Frankie, who was controlling the rudder, quickly pulled the button. Everyone, hurry up, we are going to rush in at one go. As Frankie shouted, the Wanli Sunshine's secondary wind sprayed out and rushed towards the second layer of bubbles. But the moment Itachi raised his head, he suddenly noticed the abnormal color inside this layer of bubbles. Wait a minute, something is obviously wrong inside. That's it, Zoro also noticed something unusual. Before the word, sea water, came out of his mouth, the sunshine broke through the bubble and rushed directly into the inland sea of Fishman Island. The moment the sunshine rushed into the inner sea of Fishman Island, the entire hull was overturned by the rapid current, and all the straw hats and Itachi fell into the water. Being in the current, Nami subconsciously opened her mouth to shout, but her lips just opened slightly, and the seawater suddenly poured into her stomach. Namaswang, Robin-chan. Sanji quickly wanted to launch Moonwalk to rescue Nami and the others, but he found that there was no way to launch Moonwalk in such a fast current. It's bad now, we still have 4 ability users. Sanji stretched out his hand to grab Chopper beside him, but Chopper had already been swept deep by the huge current. Just a little bit, just a little bit. Let me reach it. Zoro wanted to reach out to catch Luffy, but Luffy, whose eyes had already turned white, almost missed him. Nami, Zoro, Sanji, Usopp and Frankie are not devil fruit users, but they were swept up in the vortex of the ocean current and unable to move at all. Luffy, Chopper, Robin and Brook, as if their bodies were filled with lead, slowly sank toward the bottom of the ocean current. Are we going to die? Nami stretched out her hand weakly, and the huge fear and the roar of the sea passing by her ears had swallowed her up. But just a second before she lost consciousness, a strong hand suddenly grabbed her. That is, before she had time to look, she had already fallen into a drowning coma. At the same time, Itachi grabbed Nami with one hand to prevent Nami from being swept away by the current, and held Nami's hand with the other hand. He wanted to use Nami's hand to form a seal. Water-style water prison technique. As soon as the seal was formed, a round water ball immediately enveloped Nami. After an unknown amount of time, Nami slowly opened her eyes. This is, where, have I sunk to the bottom of the sea? When she regained consciousness, Nami suddenly found that she could breathe. She sat up from the rock and found herself on a rocky beach. Huh, are you saved? Nami looked at herself in confusion, and then looked around. There was no one around except her. At this moment, Nami suddenly saw a group of waves in the water approaching her rapidly. In panic, Nami was about to shout when she saw Frankie, whose head was shaped like a fish's back, grabbed a water balloon and jumped from the sea to the shore. With Frankie's long cry, "Super," Nami discovered that there was Robin in the big water balloon in Frankie's hand. "Frankie, Robin, what's with the water balloon in your hand?" After Frankie stood firm, he placed the water balloon wrapping Robin on the beach and took off his sunglasses. "A water ball. Itachi made it with his power. Itachi also put you in a water balloon at that time." When Frankie said this, Nami really remembered that she seemed to be breathing in the water. While the two were talking, Itachi jumped out of the sea. He landed on the beach, shook his head and said, "The current below is too strong, I still can't find them. The situation was urgent and we could only save the two ladies first," Itachi said as he unlocked Robin's water prison technique. When he first joined Akatsuki, he learned this trick from his first partner, Loquat Juzo, one of the first Kurigaku 7. Not to mention going to school, Sharingan's basic ability is to observe other people's actions as if in slow motion, so it is naturally easy to have the ability to copy. At that time, Itachi just learned how to use Loquat Juzo. It's just that Itachi made some changes when using it just now. He only formed a chakra water ball on the outside of the water prison technique, but still retained the air inside. After unlocking the water prison, Nami woke Robin up again. "Thank you so much, Itachi." Nami ran over and hugged Itachi. Being suddenly pressed down by Nami's huge white rabbit, Itachi couldn't breathe for a while. He quickly waved his hand. "You should be grateful to Frankie. After I formed a water prison for you and Robin, I went to find Luffy and the others. It was Frankie who rescued you." "Ah, thank you Frankie too." Nami turned around to show Frankie a sign, but Frankie had already jumped onto the surrounding rocks. He was looking for Luffy and the others nearby. "Frankie," Itachi called him. Luffy and the others were swept deep by the current. After saying that, Itachi was about to dive into the water again. But Nami stopped him. Really, they were separated again just after they reunited. "But don't worry too much, Itachi, they are very lucky and will definitely survive." "Yeah," Frankie was still looking around. "Although I didn't see them, I'm sure everything will be fine. That guy Luffy's survivability is terrifying. In this case, I can only pray for them." Itachi still looked into the sea with some worry. "Compared with this, I'm more worried about where the sunshine is going. It's better not to be swept to the bottom of the current." "How about asking the indigenous people here?" Itachi said. "When I looked at it from the outside, the Fishmen Island was a circular bubble structure, with the sea water in the lower half. The current we encountered at that time originated from our section and rushed to the other end. The sunshine was probably at the bottom, or it may have been washed to the other end by the current." Listening to Itachi's analysis, Frankie thought for a moment and clapped his fists. "What Itachi said makes sense. I just saw a town over there. We can go there and inquire about it." "It's feasible." Itachi nodded slightly. Just as he was about to ask Nami for her opinion, he found that Nami and Robin had already taken off their upper body clothes, and the two of them were twisting their clothes on the shore. When Robin saw Itachi looking towards them, she smiled slightly. "Thank you so much, Itachi." Itachi quickly turned his head. "It's okay, you're welcome. Are you shy, Weasel? We just don't think you are a lecherous person." Robin chuckled. Ah. Itachi was speechless for a moment. "Are you being conservative, or do the girls in this area not care about this? Are you two packed up? If so, let's head to town." Come on. Nami's upper body clothes were too short. She quickly twisted them off, followed closely by Robin. The four of them walked all the way through the reef beach and soon arrived at the town. Seeing the fishmen coming and going, Robin said with certainty, "We have landed on the Fishman Island now." "Yes, I'm sure, it's much more prosperous than I thought." Nami looked at the streets around him. I saw that there were all kinds of high-rise buildings in the surrounding streets, and they didn't look like buildings on the ground. Some were imitations of corals, and some were imitations of islands. The dazzling array of merchandise cabinets along the streets were still made of glass and various modern building materials. It is simply a combination of underwater buildings and above-ground buildings. Looking at it makes me want to make people buy it. Nami's eyes lit up. Itachi looked at the fishmen on the street. He found that there were people with human bodies and fish heads, as well as mermaids with fish lower bodies and human upper bodies. These mermaids and fishman residents were nothing like what he had imagined before. They live and shop like people on Earth. This reminded Itachi of Kisame. He wondered whether Kisame from Kurigakure village came from here. Frankie looked around and said, "There are indeed a lot of people here. It seems that it is easy to obtain information." "Are you referring to where the sunshine is going? Or where Luffy and the others are going?" Nami asked. "These are what I care about, but there is one more thing I care about." Frankie looked a little heavy. "My master shipwright, Mr. Tom, is also a fishman." Frankie recalled the great shipbuilder, the most important person in his childhood. This is his hometown, and he has relatives here. Now that I'm here, I must visit them and tell them about Mr. Tom. "Sorry, we just reunited and I have to split up." Frankie put away his fish-backed head. "If that's the case, there's nothing we can do." Nami sighed. Robin suddenly thought of something and said, "Speaking of which, I also have something to investigate." "Robin too?" Nami looked at her. "Yeah," Robin nodded. "Mishman Island has been a place with many legends since ancient times. There must be many historical fragments here. I want to go and see it." "Fragments of history," Nami murmured, and then said, "Then let's split up." "Okay." Frankie and Robin nodded. At this time, all three people looked at Itachi. "What about Itachi?" "Me." Itachi pointed at himself. "I can do that. Speaking of which, I haven't figured out where I am yet." Itachi shook his head with a wry smile. He even feels now that this is no longer his world. "Why don't you just come with me, Itachi?" Robin smiled softly. "Exactly, I still want to know about your country and why you appear here." Itachi thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, let's do this for now." Frankie waved to everyone and walked towards the street first. After that, Frankie walked towards the center of the town. Nami touched the wallet still on her waist and started walking around the street. Robin looked around and she chose a path leading to the edge of the town. "Let's go this way, Itachi, we seem to be able to see the whole town from this way." Itachi looked at the general direction and nodded. "The walk from here should be to a higher point, and you can see more scenery." Robin smiled slightly and took out the notebook. She found that the notebook was still wet and the papers were stuck together. Seeing this, Itachi took Robin's notebook. He controlled a small amount of chakra to release a small fire attached to the palm of his hand. He pressed the leather surface of the notebook tightly with both hands to prevent the flames from burning, only retaining the temperature, and it was quickly dried. Notebook. Robin was pleasantly surprised when he took the notebook again. She felt the warm leather surface of the notebook, and her heart felt warm. "Itachi, did you really not eat devil fruits, but just know ninjutsu?" "Devil fruit, what on earth is that?" Itachi asked in confusion. Seeing that Itachi really didn't understand devil fruit, Robin explained it to him in detail. After explaining the key point, Robin waved her hand, and countless arms grew into wings from her back. Devil fruits will give people special abilities, like my flower fruit ability, and Luffy's rubber fruit ability, which belongs to Paramesha. There are also two other fruits, one is animal type and the other is Logia. Robin explained to Itachi the general effects of each series of fruits in detail, and Itachi finally understood. He murmured, "It seems like it's not the same world." "What did you say, Itachi?" Robin blinked at Itachi. "Nothing." Itachi sighed lightly. He looked towards the island in the distance, and beyond that, there was the deep sea full of sunlight. Speaking of which, Itachi doesn't know where his hometown is now, does he? Robin looked at Itachi and laughed. The sketch on her fingertips was recording Itachi, who was now looking into the distance. Yes, Itachi nodded slightly. At this moment, he suddenly noticed that there seemed to be something on his head. Itachi reached up and touched it, and found that at some point he had two small hands growing on his head, like the two antlers of a deer. Seeing Itachi's discovery, Robin laughed until a blush appeared on his face. She took out the sketch and showed it to Itachi. Itachi saw that in the sketch, he looked like a deer standing on a cliff looking melancholy into the distance. It's very artistic. Itachi also smiled slightly. The two of them walked forward and came to a sea of colorful coral flowers. Robin stood by the sea of coral flowers, her dark blue top and pink skirt reflecting her fair skin, like an extension of the sea of flowers. She leaned down and admired the coral that looked like petals with a smile. She asked Itachi, "It seemed like you didn't quite understand what the 4 sea areas were before, but do you know about the Red Earth continent?" Itachi also sat next to Robin. He smiled bitterly. "I don't seem to know anything." "Excuse me, please tell me. Tell me as much as possible." Robin looked at Itachi with confusion in her eyes. She didn't understand anything and still smiled gently. "Okay." She began to tell Itachi about the world, as detailed as if she were telling a newly enlightened child about the wonders of the sea. Robin talks from the East China Sea to the North Blue, from the Red Earth continent to the New World, from One Piece Gall D. Roger's opening of the Age of Discovery to the War on the Top, the end of the 4 Emperors Whitebeard, and the new 4 Emperors dividing the New World. Marine's new Fleet Admiral Sakazuki takes office. Robin told Itachi one by one about their adventures with Luffy. When the sun set slightly and the dim light gradually appeared from the west, Robin stopped talking. She looked at Itachi, whose eyes fell into a complete blank. "Did I talk too much?" Robin said. "Not much." "Very well said." Itachi came back to his senses. "Sorry Itachi, I really don't know your hometown, Fire Country, and I don't know Akatsuki either. The world is very big, and your hometown may be somewhere we haven't touched yet." Itachi listened and was stunned for a long time, and then he laughed bitterly again. He said half-jokingly, "After listening to what you said, I seem to feel that I have no connection with the world. I don't seem to be from this world. But you are from this world." Robin put his hand on Itachi's shoulder, and the warmth from his fingertips flowed into Itachi's body through Itachi's soft armor. "You are a very reliable person, Itachi. I think Luffy will invite you to become our companion." When he heard the word companion, Itachi's eyes were shocked. These 2 words have a very complicated meaning to him. When Itachi said nothing, Robin stood up and pointed to the road ahead. "Come on Itachi, let's go over there and have a look. There seems to be a stop sign there. It's surprising. Is there a bus on Fishman Island?" Itachi looked in the direction Robin was pointing and saw that it was a stop sign. "If you can take the bus, you can see more of the island," Robin said with a smile. "Yeah, not a bad idea." Itachi was still digesting what Robin had just told him. This colorful information has allowed him to construct a preliminary impression of the world. A great maritime world where pirates are rampant and sea battles are common. This is a completely different place from the ninja world. At the same time, just above Fishman Island behind them, in Dragon Palace City, the Holy Land of Fishman Island, a big commotion that they had not expected had occurred. After Luffy, Usopp and others who were rescued by Kemi met Nami, they met the king of Fishman Island and the invitation of Neptune, the great knight of the sea, to go to Ryugu Castle for a banquet. Just after they arrived at Ryugu City, Neptune heard the prophecy of the island's prophet, the owner of the Mermaid Cafe, the Big Mermaid Shiarly. Fishman Island will be destroyed in the hands of a man wearing a straw hat. In addition, after the right minister of Ryugu Castle reported to Neptune that the Straw Hats were suspected of abducting fishmen, Neptune decided to arrest Luffy and others first. But the final result is that Zoro and Usopp have captured everyone in Ryugu City. However, an order to arrest the Straw Hats has been issued before, and the Ryugu City soldiers who are still outside are currently searching for everyone in the Straw Hats. Just as Itachi and Robin were sitting on the seats under the stop sign waiting for the bus, Itachi saw from a distance that a group of Murlocs wearing armor were coming towards them. "Robin, look over there, is that the Fishman army from Fishman Island?" Itachi's eyes were a little more cautious. Robin immediately noticed the armored Murloc, and before she could speak, a large group of Murlocs were already comparing Robin's appearance with bounty orders. "That's Nico Robin from the Straw Hats. On King Neptune's order, arrest everyone in the Straw Hats." Just when Itachi and Robin were sitting on the bus stop seats and silently watching this large group of fishmen soldiers, they had quickly rushed in front of them. The leader of the Fishman soldiers, the captain, had already taken out the reward order and placed it in front of Robin. Hey criminals, you Straw Hats are suspected of two major crimes. One is suspected of abducting a large number of mermaids, and the other is based on the prophecy of Mrs. Shiarly, the prophet of Fishman Island, that the man wearing a straw hat will destroy Fishman Island. You are suspected of destroying Fishman Island. Therefore, we are arresting you, Nico Robin of the Straw Hats. Suddenly, all the Fishmen soldiers took out their weapons and aimed at Robin. The weasel beside Robin raised his eyebrows slightly, wondering what these were. Robin also chuckled and stood up. Why haven't I heard of such a thing? Furthermore, you actually believe in something as unscientific as prophecy. Your IQ is really questionable. Upon hearing what Robin said, the Fishman captain became angry. What do you know? Mrs. Shiarly's predictions are always very accurate. You guy, just surrender and capture me. Why do you have to surrender? Robin wondered. I don't want to miss the bus. With that said, Robin has raised his hands, ready to show off the devil fruit's ability, the giant tree. But Itachi also stood up. Let me move. As he said that, Itachi flicked his wrist and Sharingan appeared. The previous few times he had fought against nature in the sea, but after regaining his 18-year-old body, Itachi had never used it on the ground. Itachi, are you going to take action? Robin smiled knowingly and put away his hand. The Fishman captain didn't know who Itachi was. Seeing him standing in front of Robin, the Fishman captain yelled. This guy came out of nowhere, get out of my way. Anyone who obstructs us will be arrested. Haha, are you still moving? Then let's capture him without mercy. The Fishman captain roared and raised his trident and rushed towards Itachi, but almost instantly, Itachi was already in front of him. Stop shouting about yourself. Itachi punched the Fishman captain on the head. His fist broke through the helmet and hit the Fishman captain's face deeply. With just one punch, the Fishman captain fell to the ground and lost consciousness. Team leader. Seeing this scene, the Fishmen soldiers rushed forward one after another. The ferret jumped up and jumped into the crowd of fish like a swift arrow. Itachi easily dodged all the Fishmen's attacks with fists and kicks. With Sharingan's blessing, it was simply slow motion. Although Itachi's physical skills are not the best, they are at least top-notch, especially his speed. Due to his years of sparring with his friend Uchiha Shisui, who is nicknamed Shunshen Shisui, Itachi's speed has almost reached its peak. Robin looked at Itachi's attack in surprise. His attack was not like Luffy's, which relied on speed and explosive power to charge forward, nor was it as powerful and heavy as Zoro's slash. Itachi's fist and kick attack was like a superb attack. Dancer. He almost combines attacks and dodges. Every attack cleverly disrupts the attacks around him. Every dodge finds an opportunity to attack when his body turns around. No movement is redundant. Robin is not good at pure fists and kicks, but she can see that Itachi's fists and kicks are also very powerful in terms of strength and speed. In almost a minute, Itachi was surrounded by Fishman soldiers who fell to the ground. Now, the last remaining one was grabbed by Itachi's throat and held in his hand. Itachi looked at the trembling Fishman soldier coldly. Itachi's terrifying and precise fatal blow just now made his whole body tremble uncontrollably. Please, please, let me go. The Fishman struggled to escape, but found that his strength was unable to compete with this human who was so much smaller than him. Itachi looked back at Robin. Is there any fish trafficking business on board? Robin had already sat back under the bus stop sign. When she heard Itachi asking this, she smiled and shook her head. There is no such business. No. Itachi turned back and continued to look at the Fishman. Where did everyone else go? Being asked suddenly by Weasel, coupled with the difficulty in breathing, the Fishman was a little confused. What? You sent them to arrest the other members of the Straw Hats. I don't know. If you say you don't know, you will die. This. The Fishman looked extremely panicked. One group of them went to the cafe on the island, and the other group returned to support Ryugu Castle. Now you, the Straw Hats, are also in Ryugu Castle. Please, spare me, I'm just following orders, please. Before the Fishman could finish speaking, the Fishman whose neck and trachea was strangled turned increasingly purple and gradually fainted. The bottom of Fishman Island. Fishman Street, the base of the new Fishman pirates. In the stronghold, several Murlocs from the new Murloc pirates were using bubble coral to expand a huge bubble surrounding the entire stronghold. There are also a few fishmen who are surrendering to them all the pirates they captured during this period. Of course, most of them have no resistance in the deep sea, and the captured pirates are gathering in the stronghold. It's really troublesome. Obviously they're just a group of low-level creatures that can't breathe in water, vile things. Two fishmen were looking at Bubbles and grumbling. Obviously, this huge bubble is prepared for these pirates. On the sofa in the center of the stronghold, the captain of the new Fishman pirate group, Hody Jones, was looking at the group of pirates ruled by him with a superior look. The pirates were all gathered in the center of the stronghold. At this time, a strange laughter suddenly came from outside the stronghold. Bahahohaho, bahahohaho. All the pirates under Hody Jones, please listen to me. You are so lucky to be part of such an important piece of history. While he was talking, a broad-striped tiger shark man wearing a small hat, a yellow coat, a mustache, and a wretched face walked in. At this time, there was already discussion among the pirates. Is that Captain Vanderdyken, the captain of the cursed ghost ship, the Flying Dutchman? Don't worry, I'm just his grandson, not a ghost. Vanderdyken walked over with a smile. But I'm also cursed. That's like being a fishman but not being able to swim. This is the effect of the target fruit curse on me. It's just right, let me show it to you. Vanderdyken raised his hands. At this moment, Hachi, the former leader of the Arlong pirates, appeared at the stronghold with a cane. He yelled, Hody, are you really going to do this? Stop joking, S is a deadly poison. Why would a fishman want to destroy the Fishman Island? The appearance of Shalba caused a lot of discussion among the fishmen. Then Hody spoke. Uncle Eighth, you are already old, so don't worry about this kind of thing. It's time for generations to change. You are no longer the leader of the pirate group I once admired. You are too timid, Hody said, playing with the box full of poison. I must let humans taste my power. Before that, I must capture Fishman Island first. Stop doing stupid things, Shalba roared. Look at Liazo and Hammond. I just heard that they were attacked by the Straw Hat Pirates and they haven't woken up yet. Now the Straw Hat Pirates are. Before Shalba finished speaking, Hody stood up with a smile. Hammond, he's not here. Hody pointed behind him, and Shalba found Hammond lying on the ground. Of course, they had no idea what move Hammond was playing. Hammond's vital signs were all present, but he was in a deep coma, and it could be detected through his pupils that he seemed to be in a state of extreme fear. I'll wake him up now. Hody smiled sinisterly and poured a bunch of poison into Hammond's mouth. Hody, how could you treat your partner like this? Just as Shalba was about to rush forward, Vanderdyken stopped him. Shalba, long time no see. Vanderdyken. Shalba was even more surprised to see this notorious person. Captain Aaron didn't even invite you on board the ship back then. Why are you here now? Vanderdyken said disdainfully. I'm not the kind of person to live in someone else's hands. Hody understands this very well, so we are now in a cooperative relationship. Besides, Vanderdyken clapped his hand toward Hachi. You're locked in. While talking, Vanderdyken threw several flying knives. Seeing that the situation was not right, Shalba hurriedly tried to escape, but no matter which direction he fled, the flying knives kept following him. Soon, Shalba, who escaped outside, was brutally hit by a flying knife. At the same time, Hammond, who had been fed more than a dozen poisonous pills, suddenly opened his eyes and woke up. Hody laughed wildly when he saw this, and he immediately announced his great plan to the human pirates. That is, Vanderdyken throws them into Ryugu City through the target fruit, and then they open the door inside Ryugu City and let Hody's new Fishman pirate group in. In that case, we won't be killed, the pirates said in shock. Hody smiled proudly. I am going to use the lives of you lowly creatures to complete this plan. If anyone disobeys, I will kill you now. As soon as these words came out, the pirates fell silent. Vanderdyken stood in the crowd, grabbed the pirates one by one and threw them towards Dragon Palace City. Hody laughed even more wildly when he saw this scene. From now on, the new history of our Fishmen tribe will begin. Cafe, Ryugu Castle. Itachi looked at Robin. It shouldn't be Nami and Frankie who are causing trouble in these two places. Robin narrowed his eyes and smiled. If anyone is making a scene, it must be Luffy and Zoro. So, they have all landed. Itachi looked into the distance. Yeah, it seems something bad happened. Robin's attention had returned to the bus stop sign. She discovered that the bus stop sign had the name Sea Forest. Regarding the Sea Forest, Robin remembered before that there were rumors that there was a historical text stored in the Sea Forest on Fishman Island. At this moment, Itachi suddenly discovered that there were several huge sea beasts flying past in the sky above Fishman Island. He pointed to the sky, and Robin also discovered that the one at the front of the sea beasts was the mount of the several murlocs when they landed on Fishman Island, the sea beast giraffe. Luffy and the others are going to be in trouble. Itachi looked further away and found a conspicuous bubble-wrapped castle in the sky. The direction in which those sea beasts were flying was exactly the bubble castle. Looking at the position of the bubble hanging high in the sky and some vaguely gorgeous buildings that could be seen from the ground, Itachi estimated that it was most likely Ryugu Castle. Yeah, things will get rough soon. Robin also had a premonition. Are you going to support them? Itachi asked. Robin shook his head. Luffy and the others should be able to handle it. I have more important things than fighting. Itachi asked. Are you looking for the historical text of Fishman Island? Robin was slightly startled. Itachi, how do you know? You told me that to get to the end of the Grand Route, you need the text of history. If the battle is to clear the obstacles to the destination, then the text of history is the way forward. You said something more important. I guess it must be the text of history. Itachi said, and the way Robin looked at Itachi changed a lot. She found that Itachi's mind was very clear when thinking about problems. Itachi crossed his arms, still looking at the flying sea beasts. If they can solve it, I'd better accompany you to find the historical text first. After hearing this, Robin covered her lips and smiled. Sorry, Itachi. Looking at it this way, I think they need you more. Need me? Yeah, the situation might be better with you. Robin stood up. Let's go help them first. That's fine. Itachi nodded. Robin immediately began to transform into wings made of arms. Can you still use your ability like this? Itachi looked at the wings in surprise. It's a bit laborious, but it should be no problem to carry the two of us. Then let's use mine first. Itachi said and immediately started forming seals. At the same time, at the wall outside Ryugu City, one of the human pirate survivors thrown into the hard shell tower by Vanderdecken had already opened the bubble channel outside. Hody, who had just assigned the task of capturing various parts of Fishman Island in the air, led a team of fishmen to the gate of Dragon Palace City and found that the door had been opened. Vanderdecken was so pleasantly surprised that he and Hody couldn't wait to attack. In Ryugu Castle, Zoro and Brook were cleaning up the human pirates who had entered the palace. But just when they killed all the pirates, Hody and his gang also broke in. What the hell, we're guests, not here to receive guests. Zoro pulled out the knife again. Who is here this time? Hody was planning on how to kill Neptune, but when he just entered Dragon Palace City, he discovered a scene that made him happy. King Neptune and the Ryugu Castle troops had long been subdued by Zoro and others. Although I don't understand what happened, this is really a great gift. Hody looked at King Neptune who was tied up with chains and laughed. At this time, Vanderdecken discovered that Princess Shirahoshi, whom he had been obsessed with for many years, was missing. Just when Vanderdecken was about to go crazy, Hody picked up an unconscious pirate. Don't worry Daken, aren't all the human pirates you threw at Shirahoshi here? Single quote. That proves that Shirahoshi is still here, and Neptune and the others are probably lying. Ah, Shirahoshi. Neptune thought of the disappearance of Shirahoshi reported by Minister Zuo just now, and couldn't help but go crazy. Little did they know, Shirahoshi was already hidden in Mekaro's mouth, and he and Luffy were walking on the way to the sea forest. Yes, Hody, you were right. Vanderdecken immediately rushed out of Ryugu Castle, picked up a huge piece of coral and threw it towards Shirahoshi. He climbed onto the coral and charged away with the coral. My Princess Shirahoshi, wait, I'm coming. What a hurry. Hody smiled, and he turned back to look at the Neptune army again. Neptune, you look so funny. Shut up, Hody, you despicable fool. Minister Zuo yelled. We have long received reports of unrest in Fishman Street, but we didn't expect it to be you. You were a member of Neptune's army. As soon as these words came out, Hody laughed even louder. That's right, I still have to thank you. In the Neptune army, I learned many fighting skills. However, that idea came to me when I was proud of the Neptune army. It's a pity that your Neptune army can only see Fishman Island, not Fishman Street. Hody recalled his childhood. Whenever pirates land on Fishman Island, they will catch fishermen wantonly on the island. In Fishman Street, when they were children, every time there was pirate trouble, someone would come forward. That person was Aaron, who later traveled across the sea and lurked in the East China Sea. At the same time, Nami has also noticed the dragon pirate's tattoo on Hody. This immediately brought back her sad memories. What I long for now is to inherit the ambition of brother Aaron, who once roamed the sea. Hody mentioned Aaron's word, and Nami visibly shuddered. Brooke also panicked and said, Aaron. Then he smiled and said, Aaron, I haven't met him before. Before he could say anything more, Usopp flew up and kicked Brooke away. Hey Brooke. Usopp looked at him seriously. Don't say anything nonsense. It's a pity that the dragon pirates, who I admired so much and wanted to be brother Aaron's right-hand man, were defeated by you Straw Hats. What a wonderful fate. Hody smiled coldly and walked to the wall of Dragon Palace City. Let's stop chatting here. Hody pressed hard against the wall, only to see the wall begin to collapse. Brother Hody, is this the power you have without taking the poison? The fishmen around him said in shock. Usopp was also shocked. Why is this wrist strength so terrifying? As the walls trembled, Nami suddenly came to the side of the mermaid Kemi, who was visiting Ryugu Castle with them. Kemi, I have something to ask you. Before she could finish her words, she saw the walls of Dragon Palace City suddenly collapse, and a large amount of seawater poured in. This caused Brooke and Usopp to yell bad. Zoro also looked around with a serious expression. This is trouble. Hody laughed wildly, and while laughing, he picked up a handful of seawater next to him. This move immediately caused the surrounding fishmen to run away. Oops, he's going to use that move. Get down quickly. Hody raised his mouth high, raised a handful of water and threw it out. Same Yabu. The handful of water was thrown out by him, and it immediately transformed into countless water droplets with the speed of bullets. The bound Neptune soldiers were unable to dodge. After being hit by this move, it was as if they had been shot through, and they were immediately unable to move. Upon seeing this, Neptune poured his body into the water, trying to use his body to block the water bombs and avoid hurting his soldiers. It's so funny. How can a king take bullets for his own soldiers? Hody mocked and threw water bombs crazily. Zoro faced the water bombs directly. He raised the knife handle and easily blocked all the water bombs coming towards him. He dodged slightly, walked forward, and continued to avoid Hody's attack. When the distance was enough, Zoro drew his sword and slashed out a wave of energy. Itori Ryu Ekotori. The air wave was heading towards Hody, but Hody didn't have much time to hide. He grabbed a fishman subordinate and blocked the attack. While everyone was shocked, Zoro turned back to Usopp and said, "Untie their ropes and let everyone go. Our negotiations with this country have failed and we have not been able to get all the hostages safe." Usopp hesitated for a moment, then quickly did so. Originally, Brooke was lying on his back to avoid the sea water. After doing this, he had no choice but to untie the soldier's rope first. "Miss Nami, where are you? Come and save me. My old bones are still being manipulated like this. Really, I can't use my strength anymore." Brooke could only leave the next task of untying the rope to other Neptune army soldiers. "Hurry up, don't let them do this," Hody shouted to his men. The fishmen rushed forward one after another, and the Neptune army also picked up their weapons again. Zoro stepped forward and cut Neptune's chains with a knife. "I have something to ask of you, big man." Zoro pointed behind him. He had already seen Kemi running away with Nami. "Let those two escape the city. What about you?" Neptune asked in surprise. Zoro pointed behind him. The water level was already very deep, and Hody had already dived into the water. "If that guy comes after me, no one can escape." After saying that, Zoro took a deep breath and dived into the water. At the same time, outside the sky of Ryugu City, Itachi and Robin were rushing over. There are still a few minutes left, I hope nothing goes wrong. Itachi had noticed that the walls of Ryugu Castle had collapsed, and a large amount of seawater poured in. Itachi, the entrance is ahead. Robin pointed to the passage that had been opened. I saw it. Itachi immediately formed a seal, and the black fire crow under his feet burned even more vigorously, and he headed straight for the entrance of Dragon Palace City. I really didn't expect that. Robin looked at the crow formed by burning fire at her feet, which was carrying the two of them and flying at high speed. Itachi's ability once again exceeded her understanding. How on earth is this done? She couldn't help but ask Itachi. Itachi lowered his head and looked at the black fire crow, which was a crow-shaped fire style made up of fire style and a large piece of soil he picked up casually as a seat base. He could use fire style chakra to burn and cause the air to flow rapidly, thereby flying quickly. This move was developed during the Akatsuki organization, when Itachi was already terminally ill. After it was developed, it was not officially used, but preparations for the final battle with Sasuke began. Speaking of, before he could say anything further, Robin had already said it for him. A bit complicated, isn't it? Itachi was stunned for a moment, then smiled. Robin laughed too. At the same time, Zoro, who had dived into the water, had killed the rampant Hody with a knife. Ito Ryu Shishijesh, originally excited and looking forward to seeing the fishmen Hody slaughtered, he looked at the scene that just happened in shock. How can it be? Why are humans faster than fishmen in the water? And that cutting power? Zoro immediately swam up after dropping Hody, and his breathing was almost at its limit. At this time, the fish people calmed down. Don't be afraid, that guy is just a human, he can't breathe in the water. Kesso, he actually killed our brother Hody, don't let that swordsman escape. The fishmen threw the poisonous into their mouths one after another. For a moment, all the fishmen in Fishman Street had scarlet eyes and their bodies became stronger. Chase me. By the way, we've also dealt with the Neptune army. Come on, everyone. The fishmen who had taken the poison were extremely ferocious, and in the blink of an eye, a fishman had already grabbed Zoro's feet. Zoro had no choice but to turn around and fight fiercely with the murlocs again. After a fight with no result, Zoro immediately used the 36 troubled winds to sweep away all the murlocs and struggled to escape from the water to breathe. Usopp, who had already seen the battle just now, saw Zoro coming out of the water and yelled at him, and Neptune noticed something unusual. How come there is such a violent aura? What kind of power did these guys get? While Neptune was thinking, some of Neptune's soldiers were being killed one after another and falling into the water. If that's the case, then you have to fight with my old bones. Neptune throws the bubble coral to Usopp. Here's something to let you breathe. Next, hold on tight to me. No matter what, I will take everyone outside first. After saying that, Neptune dived into the water. After listening to Neptune's words, Zoro had swam over and grabbed Neptune's hair with Usopp and Brook. Soldiers, don't be reluctant to fight next. I will open up a path and escape with me. Neptune said, grabbing the sea water. Usopp had already created bubbles for himself to breathe, and he threw the coral to Zoro. At this moment, Neptune violently used the super current, overturning the murloc in front of him in one fell swoop. Zoro also didn't catch the coral because of Neptune's swing. The soldiers of Neptune's army immediately took advantage of the current and fled outside. Just as Neptune was about to swim, he found that his waist was so painful that he couldn't move anymore. Hey uncle, what are you doing? Usopp shouted hurriedly as he looked at the approaching fishman. Really, I don't think I can do it anymore. Neptune was lying in the water with his belly turned white, and the 3 Usopps who caught him were on him. This is the only way. Don't be ridiculous, uncle. When the fish people saw this scene, they all moved closer to Neptune. At this critical moment, Neptune's throne whale Hall suddenly rushed out and swung his reins toward Neptune desperately. Upon seeing this, Neptune quickly grabbed Hall. Hope came again, and Hall swam desperately toward the outside. But just when he was about to swim out of the gate, Neptune suddenly found that his tail was caught. He looked back and saw that the person who caught him was Hody, whose eyes were full of scarlet. Want to go, King? Hody had just replenished the poisonous drug S, and he was now back on his feet. Seeing that Neptune was captured, the fishmen soldiers in Neptune's army were about to turn around. But Neptune suddenly shouted, "Hurry up! Leave me alone and call Shark Star and the others for reinforcements." While the soldiers were hesitating, Minister Zuo shouted, "Stop delaying and follow the king's orders quickly. Only in this way can we have a chance." The Neptune army suddenly had an idea and swam towards the outside of Dragon Palace City. "Boss Hody, are we going to chase them?" the fishman asked, looking at the fleeing Neptune army. Hody smiled. "Don't worry about them. What can the soldiers do if they abandon the king? Rather than that, let's tie up this idiot king first. And these 3 idiots." After Hody finished speaking, the fishmen in the underground followed his orders. The first thing they rushed towards was Zoro, who was almost out of oxygen. A fishman came up and grabbed Zoro's throat. "Swordsman, aren't you awesome? Where's your slash? Come again." The fishman choked Zoro, and Zoro poured water one after another, and the last breath in his mouth was spit out. Usopp has also been surrounded by fishmen with javelins and swords. "You two, go to hell first." The fishman yelled and tightened his grip on his hands, his face extremely ferocious. Hody stepped on Neptune and laughed more and more crazily. In this case, the first step is completed. But while he was laughing wildly, Hody suddenly saw a water dragon charging in from the outside. The water dragon was so majestic and extremely precise that it flew away the fishman holding Zoro in one fell swoop. Usopp was raising his hands in surrender, but suddenly he saw the water dragon out of the corner of his eye. "Water dragon, this is, brother Itachi." As Usopp screamed, he saw Itachi, whose body was wrapped in Susanna's skeleton, already entering the main hall of Ryugu Castle. Itachi formed a seal, and a water dragon rushed out again, sweeping away the fishmen around Usopp. "Brother Itachi, my savior." Usopp burst into tears of excitement. Itachi couldn't hear his shouts and didn't look at Usopp. He glanced around and found that there were probably dozens of fishmen in Ryugu City now. "To be honest, I really hate water fights now." While Itachi was thinking in his mind, the seal on his hand was formed again. "Water style waterspout, fire style the art of fire dragon." A waterspout mixed with fire dragons wiped out more than a dozen fishmen in an instant. This scene immediately confused Hody and his gang. "Why, there will be fire in the water. Who is this?" The fish people all screamed. "Don't care who he is." Hody gritted his teeth. "What are you still doing? Maybe this is the Straw Hats again. Come on, kill him. Don't forget, this is water, it's our world." Speaking of the water, the fish people once again raised their fighting spirit. "Brother Hody is right, let's go and kill him." The fish people rushed towards Weasel. Itachi's Mangekyo has appeared, and he is quickly sweeping the battlefield. The enemies are fishmen, scattered all around. The samurai and Usopp were trapped, and a huge, injured mermaid fell with them. There is a guy who looks like the leader standing on a giant mermaid. "Understood." Itachi exhaled. "The terrain is very small and friendly forces are still around. This is still in the water, so we can't delay it. The samurai is probably suffering from a lack of oxygen to his brain. Then clear the area quickly and rescue the samurai and the others." If that's the case. While Itachi was thinking, the fishman hiding behind the door suddenly raised his knife and attacked Itachi. Succeeded. Go to hell. Itachi had noticed him a long time ago, and he didn't even make a move to look back. The fishman swung his sword vigorously to look at Itachi, but the machete struck Susanna, as if it had struck extremely hard steel armor. Not only did it not leave a trace on Susanoo, the machete in the fishman's hand was easily shattered into pieces. Several paragraphs. When the fishman was shocked, the surrounding fishmen were already slashing at Weasel. But what confused them was that when their weapons fell on Susanna, they all broke apart due to their strongest attack. At the same time, a pool of blood flowed out of Itachi's right eye. "Amaterasu. Ah, Tyrus. What's going on? Who is this person? His shell is so hard, is it a turtle shell?" A fishman was curiously tapping Susanoo with the handle of his sword. When Hody saw that several fishmen were unmoved, he yelled, "What are you doing standing there in a daze? Let me chop him to death." "Boss Hody," the fishman turned around and held the broken knife handle and said, "We don't know what's going on. This man has a hard shell. It can't be cut at all." The fishman shook his hands helplessly. "What a bunch of losers." Hody picked up the trident and was about to take it, but at this moment his eyes changed. The fishmen around Susan were still confused 1 second, and the next second their bodies were burning with black flames. The fishman who had just been talking to Hody suddenly heard screams from his companions around him. He hurriedly turned around and saw a black fire burning on his back at some point. This is, the fishman didn't even have time to scream, and was already swallowed up by the black flames. Itachi's eyes were scanning all the fishmen in the palace. Wherever he looked, the black flames of Amaterasu were igniting on the bodies of the fishmen. Hody, who was about to charge, was immediately stunned by this scene. Why can this flame burn in water? This is in the sea, this is our sky. Before Hody could finish speaking, he saw that the Mangekyo Sharingan in the fiery red Susanna had already stared at him. Hody was shocked, and subconsciously picked up a fishman to block it in front of him. Brother Hody, what are you going to do? What are you? Black flames suddenly ignited on the fishman's body. Hody, who was hiding behind the fishman brother, swept around and found that all the fishmen in the palace had been ignited by the black flame. And no matter how hard I struggled in the water, the black flames couldn't be extinguished, as if they were going to burn everything. Just when Hody was so shocked that he was shaking all over, he suddenly discovered that the ferret had attacked him. Using your companions as a shield. Then you go to hell with them. Itachi stretched out Susan's hand, and Hody hurriedly tried to block it with his trident, but when he collided with Susan's arm, Hody's forceful swing directly caused the trident to shatter. At the same time, Hody was looking into the eyes that were still slowly bleeding. At this time, Hody only had one thought in his mind: this black flame is definitely a dimensionality reduction blow. Almost as soon as they looked at each other, Hody turned around and ran away without even thinking. Sure enough, a series of black flames ignited behind him. The main entrance of the palace had been blocked by Weasel's figure. Hody suddenly burst out with a strong desire to survive. With the help of the poison, Hody chewed a corner of the city wall in 2 or 3 bites and immediately fled out of the palace like a mouse burrowing through a hole. Itachi wanted to chase him, but he found that the speed of this guy's escape in the water was simply astonishing. In addition, Zoro and Usopp were still in the water, so Itachi had no choice but to turn around and save them first. He enlarged Susanna, formed Susanoo into a skeleton, and stretched out his hand to pull Zoro into Susanna. Usopp saw that his savior was already crying bitterly. Before Itachi could reach out his hand, he kicked off and jumped onto Itachi's Susan's hand. Entering Susanna, Usopp wanted to hug Itachi and kiss him 186 times. Brother Itachi, you are my god. My god. Okay, hurry up and help the warrior resuscitate. Itachi looked at Neptune again and asked, where are the others? As for the others, Nami and Kami went somewhere as soon as the fight started. Luffy has long disappeared, and Brook, well, as for Brook. Usopp looked around, and Itachi suddenly pointed upward. I saw it, it's floating there. It turns out that after Zoro was caught just now, Brook pretended to be a dead body floating on the water, motionless. I am a dead person. I am a skeleton. No one should come to see me. No one should come to see me. While Brook was talking, he suddenly saw a giant fiery red skeleton emerging from the water. Brook was so frightened that she shouted miserably, Mamma mia! What is this? Hey Brook, don't pretend to be dead. Weasel is here to save us. Let's go quickly. Usopp yelled at Susanaka. Is it Itachi-san's giant skeleton? Itachi-san. Brook wanted to wave, but he couldn't find the strength at all. Itachi stretched out his hand and grabbed him into Susanoo. There's no one left, right? What about this giant mermaid? Itachi pointed at Neptune. What he said, well, it's a long story, but if you want to save it, you should save him as well. He is the king of Fishman Island. Usopp said. After listening to Usopp's words, Itachi extended his Susanoo hand towards Neptune. Hold on, I'll take you out first. What he didn't expect was that Neptune waved his hands repeatedly. I'm sorry everyone, I thought I'd got you all involved just now. Fortunately, your companions came to the rescue. Neptune looked at Itachi. You really have a reliable partner. Itachi looked at him calmly. Don't talk nonsense. Are you leaving? Neptune cried silently. You are so heartless, can't you just let me say some sensational words? That makes sense. Can you leave, uncle? Usopp agreed. Neptune shook his head. I won't leave. As the king of Fishman Island, I want to stay in my palace. Shirahoshi is still missing, my 3 princes will come back. Since there is no danger for the time being, I will stay here and wait for Sharkstar and the others to come back and explain to them how to deal with Hody. Neptune said with fire stars burning in his eyes. I want to find out who kidnapped my Shirahoshi. I must find Shirahoshi. He looked at Itachi and the others again. Brothers, please leave first, But at this moment, he discovered that Itachi and the others who were still in front of him had disappeared. Neptune looked up and saw that Itachi had already left with Usopp and the others. Neptune silently shed 2 more lines of tears. Can't you just hear me out? Uncle King seems to have not finished speaking yet. Usopp looked back at Neptune. After burning all the fishmen to death, Itachi also lifted the fire of Amaterasu in the palace. After doing this, he kept looking forward and swimming forward. Before Itachi could say anything, Zoro had already woken up. Don't worry about him. The first thing now is to find Luffy and the others. Something big is going to happen here soon. Zoro, you woke up so soon. Usopp exclaimed. Yeah, Zoro took a deep breath and stood up. It's just a lack of oxygen. He looked around him and found that this was inside Itachi's Susanna skeleton. Thanks, Itachi, Zoro said a little unnaturally. It's okay, no need to say more. Hearing this, the corners of Zoro's mouth raised slightly. Robin, who was sitting on the bubble at the entrance to Ryugu Castle, was looking into the distance. She just saw Kemi and Nami swimming towards the outside of Ryugu Castle, but the distance was too far. Robin wanted to call Nami to stop, but she didn't hear her. At this time, Robin discovered that Itachi had come out, taking Zoro and others with him. I didn't expect it to be quite fast. Robin jumped off the bubble, and Itachi, who came to the exit, had also released Susanna. Usopp, who had just landed, quickly asked Robin, Robin, did you see an escaped fishman? A fishman? I did see one, but it's just a mermaid. Robin put a finger to his cheek. I just saw Kemi taking Nami away. They seemed to have boarded the sea bus. Zoro, Kemi, Usopp, Nami, Brook, sea bus. Itachi added. When I came in just now, I saw soldiers running away. If we say they are fishmen, they should all be fishmen. What, brother Itachi? Usopp went crazy. What I want to ask is the fishman named Hody, the fishman named Hody. It seems like that guy is the culprit, he is the boss of those fishmen. Speaking of which, Usopp moved closer to Itachi. Speaking of which, brother Weasel, what move did you use just now? How can you create burning flames even underwater? Can fire burn underwater? Zoro, who had just experienced a water fight, looked at Itachi. Yes, Zoro, you don't know. Usopp danced and demonstrated to them. I don't know what happened just now. I saw the fishmen scattered in the palace suddenly started to be burned by black flames, and they couldn't be extinguished no matter how hard they struggled in the water. Fire in the water. Zoro raised his eyebrows. What are you talking about, Usopp? Do you think I'm talking nonsense? Usopp's tiger body shook, and he pulled Itachi out. Brother Weasel, explain to him, and by the way, explain to me how the fire was made. Seeing Usopp pulling Itachi, Robin smiled and said, Itachi may say it again later. This explanation is a bit complicated. While several people were talking, Brook suddenly spoke. It's okay, Itachi-san, maybe I can explain it to you. Brook, how do you explain? Usopp turned around and asked. It's simple. Brook turned his butt around, and everyone suddenly discovered that the black flames of Weasel were already burning on Brook's buttocks. Yes, that's it. Usopp took out a magnifying glass to study. Look, I'm not talking nonsense. This is it. Itachi was also very surprised. When he was about to leave Ryugu Castle, in order to prevent Amaterasu, which would never be extinguished unless it burned its target, from burning Ryugu Castle, he used Amaterasu's glance again to offset all the black flames. But how can this? So I said, I also believe in the existence of fire that can burn in water, but now. Ta ck. 1 dozen kazang. Brook hugged Itachi and cried. I can't get rid of this thing, please help me get rid of it, get rid of it. Just now when Brook pretended to be dead and floated past a burning fishman in Dragon Palace City, he was exposed to this black flame, but he didn't pay attention to it just now. When he came out, he thought it would be extinguished by patting it. But he didn't expect that the fever was getting stronger and stronger now, and no matter what he did, he couldn't get rid of it. There really is such a thing. Zoro watched Brook rolling around, the black flames behind him unable to burn out. Itachi sighed lightly, and after Mangekyo's Sharingan appeared, he neutralized the Amaterasu on Brook's butt with Amaterasu. It's really, this was the first time Itachi used it this way. Saved. Brook relaxed and sat down. This time it seems like all my bones are useless and will be burned. Zoro stood up and said to everyone, anyway, let's meet up with Luffy and the others first. Didn't Usopp just say that the fishman named Hody escaped? Something big will definitely happen here. Zoro raised his knife and looked around. He saw the soldiers of Ryugu City who had escaped. At this time, Robin suddenly pointed to a stop sign in the distance. Under the stop sign was a long and narrow bubble channel. That's where Nami and the others left. We might as well follow that passage to find Nami first. Yoshi, everyone gathered together first. Usopp clapped his hands. As he spoke, he took the lead and ran towards the passage. At this time Itachi suddenly said, the samurai is right, but something big is not going to happen soon. It's already happened. Itachi's Sharingan had appeared, and he looked at the ground under Ryugu Castle. On the other side, outside the Fishman Island, the Forest of the Sea. On the way to the Forest of the Sea with Shirahoshi, Luffy had already met Sanji and Chopper, as well as Hachi, who was seriously injured by Vanderdecken and was rescued by Chopper. He also experienced a brief battle to protect Shirahoshi, and also he discovered that the residents of Fishman Island had begun to hate them for unknown reasons. However, what Luffy didn't know was that what the residents of Fishman Island thought was the kidnapping and trafficking of fish people by the Straw Hats was actually done by the wet-haired Caribou who had been hiding on the ship. While Luffy and the others were fighting, Caribou had set his sights on Shirahoshi. A single mermaid can be auctioned for 70 million belly, let alone such a huge mermaid lady. Finally, the group of them arrived at the sea forest. At the same time, Frankie also found his master Tom's brother, Mermaid Dan. Under the leadership of Dan, Frankie found the washed-up Only Sunshine in the Forest of the Sea. As soon as Luffy arrived at the Forest of the Sea, he found Jinbei waiting for him here. Here we come, Luffy. Did Prince Shark and the others bring you this message? Shark Star. What Shark Star? Luffy was puzzled. You came here without hearing their message. It's really strange. What Jinbei didn't know was that as soon as Luffy and the others appeared on Fishman Island, they encountered Sharkstar and the new Fishman pirates who entered the island to pursue them after they discovered that Hammond and the others had been killed. Luffy was in such a hurry after the battle that he didn't hear Sharkstar's message. Oh, Princess Shirahoshi, it's been a long time no see. Jinbei hurriedly greeted Shirahoshi. Even, Boss Jinbei. Shirahoshi waved to Jinbei happily. But suddenly, Jinbei realized something was wrong. He stared so hard that his eyes almost fell out. Princess Shirahoshi, why are you here? When Jinbei was shocked, Chopper was waving to Frankie. Frankie, help me move Sanji and Hachi down. When Jinbei heard Hachi, he subconsciously looked at Mekaro's back. Frankie stepped forward to take Octopus Hachi and exclaimed in surprise, isn't this the octopus fool? What's up with him? After seeing that it was Hachi, Jinbei's eyes widened even more. Xiaoba, why are you here? What's the matter with your injuries? The more Jinbei talked, the more he felt something was wrong. Speaking of which, why are you on Fishman Island? After Aaron's defeat, weren't you supposed to be captured by Marine along with them? Xiaoba was also confused. He held on to his injuries and asked, Boss Jinbei, why are you here? At this time, Chopper was about to call Frankie to move Sanji, but Sanji jumped lightly and came to Shirahoshi. No, I don't need to trouble you. He looked at Shirahoshi, eyes filled with heart symbols. Ah, Mermaid Princess, in front of you, I seem to be an incompetent painter. With my painting tools, I can't describe your brilliance at all. Sanji's operation made Shirahoshi confused. But Chopper looked extremely excited. Sanji is back in that weird state. I finally have a normal reaction to women, Sanji is fine. At this time, Luffy also noticed Mermaid Dan standing on the sunshine. Just as he was about to ask who it was, Frankie explained to him. Luffy was relieved when he suddenly realized that something was flying towards Shirahoshi. He jumped up to Shirahoshi and kicked away a sharp axe. Jinbei was surprised and told Luffy about Van der Decken. Luffy patted his chest indifferently after hearing this. It's okay, I'm here. Shirahoshi hurriedly smiled and said, yes. Princess Shirahoshi, I'm really relieved. Jinbei calmed down a little. As he spoke, Shirahoshi looked at the tombstone deep in the forest. That is the tomb of her mother, Princess Otahime. After explaining to everyone, Shirahoshi came to the tombstone to worship. Seeing this, Jinbei told Luffy and the others some experiences about Princess Shirahoshi. At this moment, Nami and Kemi, who got on the bus, had also arrived at the sea forest. Nami had already confirmed with Kemi before that Jinbei would be waiting for Luffy here. The reason why she rushed here was to confirm with Jinbei what was most important to her. At the same time, below the Dragon Palace city, Hody, who had just escaped, was still in shock. He first traveled to the sea outside the palace below Dragon Palace city and hid in a coral reef. After confirming that the fiery red skeleton giant had not chased him out, Hody's heartbeat, which was beating extremely due to fear, slowly calmed down. Just now, what on earth was that? And that person? Hody suddenly remembered the man in black in the skeleton. Just when the black flames were about to ignite him, he suddenly looked directly at a pair of eyes with blood-colored patterns. I've never heard of such a scary guy in the straw hats. Is this some kind of killer weapon? Hody suddenly realized something. He said to himself that the straw hats were just a rookie group. Although there were 2 supernovas on board with a bounty of over 100 million, the commotion in the Grand Line was simply beyond the capabilities of the supernovas. Is it possible that it's because there is such an expert here? After thinking about it, Hody slapped himself in the face. Baga, what are you thinking about? Even the 4 emperors who are now collecting protection fees from Fishman Island, Big Mom is here. As the new king who is about to rule Fishman Island, I will crush those guys. I have a dangerous medicine. If 1 pill is not enough, take 10 pills. If 10 pills are not enough, take 100 pills. Thinking of it, Hody raised his head and looked fiercely at the sky. I want to become. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly froze. Just because at this moment he discovered that the Straw Hats who were in the palace just now were at the entrance of Ryugu City. Among those people was Itachi, who was dressed in black. Hody quickly hid himself in the coral reef again. At this moment, the Murlocs who were riding a giraffe sea beast outside and waiting for help suddenly saw Hody squatting in the coral bush. Look, is that Boss Hody? Hey, Boss Hody. The Murlocs waved to Hody excitedly, and one Murloc even tried his best to break the bubble with a knife and shouted inside, Boss Hody, what's going on? Have you caught Neptune? But before he could get too excited, Hody turned his face and stared at the fish man with a murderous face. Please, keep your voice down. Hody's pitch was extremely sharp, but his volume was extremely low. Outside Ryugu City, Robin discovered that there was also a stop sign to take the sea bus, and the bus's endpoint was the sea forest. Why do I feel that Nami went to the forest of the sea? Should we also go to the sea forest? Forest, Nami, what are you doing in the forest when you have nothing to do? Usopp said. I don't know, we can go there and look for it. Robin laughed. That's right, I've always wanted to go to the sea forest. It turns out it was Robin who wanted to go. Usopp exclaimed in surprise. Why is there Nami there? At this moment Itachi suddenly said, we can go and take a look. As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes turned to Itachi. Itachi was still looking at the bottom of Ryugu Castle. He said, the stop sign here says that the destination of the sea bus is the sea forest, and there are many stops ahead. Then this means that we can reach many stops on Fishman Island on the way to the sea forest by taking the sea bus. We can then search around the site until we find Nami and the others. After Itachi finished expressing his thoughts, several people agreed. Usopp laughed and said, it must be Brother Itachi, his mind is so clear. Zoro also chuckled, that's indeed a good idea. Robin had already arrived at the entrance of the passage, and a bus happened to be passing by, so she waved the bus to stop. When the bus stopped in front of a few people, Robin was very surprised. I didn't expect it to be a big fish. I saw that the bus was a big fish with several seats on its back. There was also a big bubble on the seat to ensure the breathing of the passengers. Robin waved to everyone. Come here quickly, we are about to set off. The design is really user-friendly. Brooke was about to jump into the bus and sit next to Robin, but unexpectedly Robin stretched out his hand directly towards Itachi. Itachi, please sit next to me. The view from the front is better. Itachi nodded, he just wanted to check the status of each site. Robin-chan. Brooke secretly felt sad. I still want to sit with you. Usopp directly picked up Brooke. What time is it? Don't whine blindly. Hurry up and get going. Get out. When Zoro also got on the boat, Robin said to the big fish, we are seated, please go. Unexpectedly, the big fish really seemed to understand the human words, and started to surge forward in the pipe with enough energy. Itachi was very surprised when he saw this scene. He had never seen a bus before, let alone a bus in the water. But it was only after a moment of surprise that Itachi discovered something abnormal below. Look at the town below. As soon as Itachi finished saying this, several people stood up one after another. I saw that under the bus passage, in the town closest to Dragon Palace City, fishmen had begun to destroy houses and gather the residents together. As they walked forward, Usopp saw the third shark prince who initially wanted to arrest them on the beach. At this moment, Sharkstar was fighting a big guy in the town that was much bigger than other fishmen. It seems that not only Ryugu City, but also various levels of riots have begun to occur on Fishman Island. Usopp sighed as he looked at the towns below. Thinking of Dragon Palace City, he turned around suddenly. Speaking of which, is it really okay if we leave the king alone in Dragon Palace City? Otherwise we can't bring him along as a bus. Zoro held his sword and looked at the town below with deep thoughts. He added, don't worry, I don't think those soldiers will abandon their king. Besides, that guy Hody has been injured and escaped. He may not be able to go back. Zoro accurately hit Hody with a knife style. Although he didn't know what happened later, the guy stood up again. But Zoro knew the depth of his blade's impact. But this time Zoro guessed wrong. After seeing them leaving Dragon Palace City, that guy Hody really returned to Dragon Palace City. A few people took the sea bus and passed several town stops along the way. They found that the entire Fishman Island was in chaos, but Nami and the others were never seen. Not only Nami, but also Usopp didn't see Sanji and Chopper when passing over the Fishman Cafe. Logically speaking, if such a big turmoil occurred, the two of them would know something about it. At this time, Robin suddenly said, could it be that Nami and the others encountered those vicious fishmen after they escaped, and they must have been killed by now? Robin-chan, it's so scary. Brooke covered her empty cheek. Don't say such horrible things, Robin. Usopp also agreed. I didn't see them along the way, maybe there was only one last stop left. Itachi had already put away the Sharingan. Sea forest. Itachi closed his eyes, he wanted to conserve his strength. Seeing so many riots along the way, Itachi could already feel that there would be a big battle soon. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.